Chapter 105. In the face of an enemy like Owl who relies on external forces, the best way is to use a seal. But the problem is that Rog doesn't know how to use a seal now. So he chose the second plan. The second plan is also very simple, that is, to directly choose a war of attrition. Because Owl's super speed is not his own ability, it means that his super speed is uncontrollable. This uncontrollable does not mean that he can't control his super speed. It means that he can't decide the duration of his super speed. If he is lucky, he can maintain this super speed until the battle is over. If he is unlucky, he will be beaten back to his original form in the next second and become an ordinary person again. After making the decision, Rog stopped the previous repeated flying Thor teleportation and stopped directly on the edge of the wall, waiting for Owl's arrival. Although Owl had unimaginable super speed, it was a pity that he did not have the combat skills to match this super speed. Owl's tactics are always so straightforward, perhaps in his heart, this kind of straightforward attack is enough to solve all the enemies. When Owl rushed toward himself again, a light blue lightning struck straight at Owl. Raitun, Chidori Iguchi. Although Owl's combat skills are not worth mentioning, it is not difficult for him to avoid the attack of Chidori Iguchi. Just when Owl sideways to avoid the lightning tip of Chidori Iguchi, Rog's right hand suddenly waved, and Chidori Iguchi directly swept toward Owl. In order to avoid being hit by Chidori Iguchi, Owl can only change his forward posture and let the left side dodge. From the beginning to the end, Rog didn't expect Chidori Iguchi to hit Owl. The reason why he used Chidori Iguchi was just to let Owl appear where he wanted. Although Owl, who dodged to the left, avoided the sweep of Chidori Iguchi, he ignored the flying Thor kunai at his feet. Flying Thor. Rog, who was standing on the edge of the wall, came to Owl's side in an instant, and then before Owl could react, his left palm hit Owl's back. Rog's left palm did not cause any harm to Owl, it was just a simple slap. If time permits, Rog doesn't mind letting Owl experience the taste of Rasengan. Although it only takes a little time to cast Rasengan, this time is enough for Owl to use super speed to leave here. After being patted by Rog, Owl also realized something. But at this moment, it was meaningless. Flying Thor. If it wasn't for the Flying Thor spell on Owl's body, Rog wouldn't be interested in touching a male's body. The outcome of this battle had been decided. Relying on the super speed granted by the mysterious power in its body, Owl continued to jump for more than 10 minutes. In the end, when the mysterious force did not continue to appear, Rog used the flying Thor kunai in his hand to cut across Owl's neck, completely ending his life. Without Owl's restraint, Rog once again began his one-man siege. At the moment when Owl's body fell to the ground, in the mind of the commander of Kurun Castle, the picture of the fall of Kurun Castle involuntarily emerged. Although there were still 7,000 or 8,000 troops stationed in Kurun Castle, and a large number of specially prepared defensive equipment, but this did not change the fate of Kurun Castle. After killing Owl, Rog did not continue to attack the ordinary soldiers, but began a purposeful beheading operation. With the help of the Flying Thor, all the defenses of Kurun Castle were useless to him. No matter how many guards there were around these commanders, the last thing they saw was the Kusanagi sword with lightning wrapped around it. One commander after another was killed, and the command system of Kurun Castle quickly collapsed. It didn't take long for the garrison of Kurun Castle to be in a mess. They didn't know what to do now, whether to continue to hold their posts, or to pursue Rog who was alive and kicking in the city, or to choose to retreat directly. Death and chaos quickly shrouded the entire Kurun Castle. When most of the commanders of Kurun Castle were killed by Rog, the remaining commanders finally made a decision. Give up Kurun Castle, preserve the strength, and prepare for a future counterattack. Half an hour later, the west gate of Kurun Castle was opened, and the garrison of Kurun Castle began to retreat. Looking at the mighty 5,000 or 6,000 people, Hogan seriously thought for a moment, and finally made the decision to pursue. Although it was impossible to wipe out the enemy, but it was not a problem to add some trouble to the enemy. Most of the garrison of Kurun Castle chose to retreat, and those who stayed in Kurun Castle also chose to surrender. Although Rog did not attack these ordinary soldiers, but his previous battle had left a very deep impression on these soldiers. So after the main force retreated, they decisively put down their weapons and expressed their willingness to surrender. Anyway, it was not the first time they surrendered, and losing to Asgard was not a disgrace. In terms of treatment of prisoners of war, Asgard's reputation had always been very good, and this also unknowingly dispelled some of the worries of the garrison of Kurun Castle. Until now, these soldiers still thought that Rog was from Asgard. Because in their minds, only a powerful country like Asgard could produce a strong person like Rog. A few hours later, Hogun led the Asgard soldiers to officially take over Kurun Castle. Whether it was Hogun or the other Asgard soldiers, they did not expect that this siege of Kurun Castle would turn into a one-man show by Rog. Except for the loss of some soldiers when pursuing the garrison of Kurun Castle, Asgard took over Kurun Castle without any losses. Well, the URU medal you want may be given to you later. It will take a few days for the logistics team to arrive. They should have some URU medal in their hands. After all, they are the only ones who have army craftsmen. Hogun said to Rog with some embarrassment. The mission was completed, but he could not pay the reward. This was even more embarrassing for him than losing the battle. That's not urgent. I have a question now. Rog told Hogun about the special characteristics of Owl in detail, hoping to get some information from Hogun. If I'm not wrong, the energy on Owl's body should be the awakened divine power. But under normal circumstances, awakened divine power will exist forever and will not disappear like this. Hogun said with uncertainty. Awakened divine power? What is that? Rog continued to ask. The reason why Asari and Warner Protoss are called the Protoss is because we have a kind of energy called divine power. But not everyone can awaken divine power. Only the best of a race can awaken their own divine power. The power of Odin, the power of Heimdall, the power of omniscience, and the power of the storm of the three storm brothers are all awakened divine powers. Chapter 106. Although Hogun didn't awaken divine power, as an Asgard, and an Asgard officer with a high position, he still has enough understanding of divine power. Through Hogun's explanation, Rog also roughly understood the so-called divine power. In short, divine power is the racial superpower of Asari and Warner Protoss. However, this superpower is not caused by genetic mutation, and the difficulty and conditions of awakening are a bit high. According to Hogun, the proportion of awakening divine power is about 1 in 10,000. Of course, this is just a rough proportion. For those who are born in a good family, the possibility of awakening divine power is hundreds of times higher than ordinary people. This is the fundamental reason why Asari and Warner Protoss can maintain the aristocratic rule. From this point of view, Owl was undoubtedly a lucky guy who was bursting with luck. But unfortunately, he doesn't seem to have received a complete education on divine power, otherwise, the speed divine power in his body wouldn't show such a strange state. Both lucky and unlucky, Owl may be the kind of person who has the legendary Schrodinger's luck. After waiting for a few days in Kurun Castle, Hogun finally waited for Asgard's reinforcements and logistics team, and then handed over the agreed URU medal to Rog. Unconsumed ninja coins, 336. The system's commission reward is in his hand, and the URU medal is also in his hand. Rog's mood also became better. Because there is no next attack plan for the time being, Rog finally experienced a real alien trip in Kurun Castle. There were all kinds of unknown Vanaheim specialty snacks, alien races from an unknown planet, alien weapons with strange shapes, and alien skin colors and hair colors that were all different from the aliens. Rog was like a real tourist, appearing in every corner of Kurun Castle, tavern, weapon shop, food street, romance street. Although Kurun Castle has just experienced war, it has no impact on the lives of the residents in the city. Everything in the city is developing according to this established trajectory. Without investigation, there is no right to speak. After a few days of tourist life, Rog found that he still prefers Earthlings, or alien races that don't look much different from Earthlings, such as Warner Protoss. Because of the focus of Warner Protoss, after waiting in Karun Castle for a week, Hogan and Rog finally received the latest news from Thor. The process was a bit difficult, but Thor still completed the established goal and successfully took the target city. Fandral and Volstagg had also successfully completed their mission, and the number of Asgard's camps in Vanaheim had increased to 7. Although there are still 16 camps under the control of Warner Protoss, Asgard's early plan can be regarded as perfectly completed. From departure to the present, a total, less than 2 weeks. According to this progress, it will take at most 3 months for Asgard to restore order in Warnerheim. 3 months, for Asgard with an average lifespan of 5,000 years, is a short period of time that doesn't need to be calculative. However, things didn't develop as smoothly as Asgard expected. 3 months passed in the blink of an eye. In the past 3 months, Asgard sent several reinforcements, increasing the number of Asgard soldiers in Warnerheim to more than 50,000. But even so, Asgard only recovered 7 camps in the past 3 months. Of the 23 camps, 14 have returned to Asgard's hands. The remaining 9 are still firmly in the hands of Warner Protoss. In the process of Asgard recovering the camps, Rog didn't stay idle. He accepted several commissions from Thor and the 3 warriors of Sengoku. But he doesn't know if the system did it on purpose, but most of the commissions from Thor and the 3 warriors of Sengoku didn't pass the system's judgment. The few commissions that passed the judgment didn't give a high reward. Unconsumed ninja coins, 385. After 3 months, Rog's unconsumed ninja coins increased from 336 to 385. He only needed 15 ninja coins to get the Sage Mode inheritance, which is worth 400 ninja coins. After 3 months of serious consideration, Rog finally decided on which sacred grounds immortal technique inheritance he wanted to learn. In fact, he didn't need to think for so long. With the Wood release and Hashirama Sage Mode, he only has one choice, and that is the Shikatsu Forest Sage Mode inheritance. The Toad Senjutsu of Mount Mayaboku is only suitable for people like Prince Ming. Even a fierce person like Jiraiya only got an incomplete Sage Mode after decades of learning. As for the Ryuchi Cave, Rog only thought for a second and refused. No matter what era it is, stay away from men who play with snakes. Their spirit is a bit. He doesn't know if the system will pack a summon contract of a living slug after redeeming the Sage Mode inheritance. Just when Rog started to imagine some beautiful things, Thor came to him with Thor's hammer. Sif came with Thor. Sif finally appeared on Asgard's list. As for whether it was her own wish or Queen Freya's arrangement, only the 2 of them knew. There are more and more garrisons in Muguang City. I hope you can go in and see if there are any loopholes in the defense line. We have been delayed here for too long. Thor said to Rog with some tiredness. The Muguang city he mentioned was the culprit that caused their progress to be seriously delayed. Asgard wasn't the only one who will increase their forces. After Thor joined Rog and others, Warnerheim also increased their frontline forces. There are now more than 40,000 garrisons in Muguang City, and there is no lack of Warner Protoss's high-end combat power. Muguang City is one of the 5 main cities in Warnerheim. It has high walls and many soldiers, and it is easy to defend and difficult to attack. What's more troublesome is that this is a place that has to be fought for. Whether they can take down Muguang City directly determines whether Asgard can successfully recover the rest of the camp. In the past 3 months, Asgard spent most of his time attacking Muguang City. It has been almost 2 months since the day of the attack. In the past 2 months, Thor has climbed the walls of Muguang City more than once, but he was beaten back. Thor is a Ceres Thor, and Warner Protoss naturally has their own Thor, and more than one. Now in charge of commanding the Muguang City garrison is Warner Protoss's 2 Thor, 2 female Thor. In other words, the twin female Thor, Vigtigni and Weigelf. More than 10 minutes later, a Warner Protoss soldier came out of the forest outside Muguang City, then took advantage of the night to climb over the wall of Muguang City and entered Muguang City. In the City Lord Hall of Muguang City, the two sisters Victigny and Weigelf were carefully looking at the topographic map outside the city, and from time to time, they asked other generals next to them. At this time, Weigelf, as the younger sister, suddenly frowned. "Sister, something may happen tonight." After hearing Weigelf's words, the City Lord Hall instantly quieted down. Although Weigelf's strength is weaker than her sister Victigny, she has a strong sixth sense that is completely unreasonable. Raise the level of alert, change the temporary password of the entire army, double the number of patrols. Without any hesitation, Victigny immediately issued the latest order. Anything that can make Weigelf have an intuition is not a trivial matter. This has been unquestionably confirmed in the past 1,000 years. The next second after Victigny issued the order, more than a dozen generals quickly left the City Lord Hall and began to implement the latest order. "Can you predict who it is? Is it Thor or Rog?" Victigny asked. "I don't know, but I think the possibility of it being Rog is higher," Weigelf said with some uncertainty. After hearing Rog's name, Victigny's face became extremely cold, like an iceberg that has not melted for thousands of years. If you want to pick the person in the opposite Asgard army that she wants to kill the most, then Victigny will always have only one answer, and that is Rog. Even Asgard's commander, Thor, has to be ranked behind Rog. The reason why Victigny hates Rog so much is purely Thor's fault. A month ago, Thor gave him a commission to go to Muguang City's database to get a copy of Muguang City's construction log. It was a very simple commission, and it didn't require fighting and killing, as long as he got the information. Originally, this commission was indeed very simple. But Thor and Rog did not expect that someone would fall asleep in the database. And this person was not someone else, but the highest commander of Muguang City. As a commander, it was normal for him to learn about the defense of the city in the database. Because he was too tired, it was also normal for him to fall asleep in the database. The only abnormal thing was that the book that Victigny pressed under her hand happened to be the Muguang City's construction log that Rog wanted to steal. The next thing was very simple. Rog and Victigny fought in the database, and the final result was that Rog smoothly took away the city's construction log. It's just that when he picked up the city's construction log, he was a little disgusted. The construction log that was covered with saliva on the cover was something that anyone would dislike. Moreover, before the Flying Thunder God left the database, he said a very normal sentence, but it completely ignited Victigny's anger. "You're already such a big man, and you're even the commander of an army, but you still sleep and drool like a child, sigh." Originally, this sentence was nothing, but coincidentally, when Rog said this sentence, the defenders near the database just arrived at the scene. As for what happened later, Rog wasn't too clear. The only thing he could be sure of was that from the next day onwards, as long as he appeared on the battlefield, Victigny would chase him crazily with the two-handed greatsword that was not much smaller than his round fan. Rog, who was walking in Muguang City, suddenly sneezed, and then glanced around vigilantly. "It can't be that bad, right? I just came in." Although Rog didn't fight much with the two sisters, Victigny, he knew very well how terrifying the intuition of the sister Weigelf was. Weigelf was the only person he had met who could see through his shadow clone and transformation technique. Chapter 108. To be precise, she didn't see through it, but she used her incredible sixth sense to directly distinguish between the original body and the avatar. As for the transformation technique, it was the same. Even if he turned into the most inconspicuous guard, Weigelf would still be able to recognize him. This was a bit unreasonable, and what was even more troublesome was that Rog had no way to deal with it. After entering Muguang City, Rog was like a real patrol soldier, constantly moving forward in the city. In order to make himself look less lonely, he also deliberately summoned 9 shadow avatars and let them disguise themselves as patrol soldiers. As a result, a standard patrol team was born. If someone paid a little attention, they would find that the people in this patrol team were all soldiers who died in battle. In the silent night, a small patrol team made up of the dead who had died in battle was patrolling the city like ghosts. With the addition of some sparse drizzle and a bleak breeze, it was a typical opening to a horror story. Although there were many garrisons in Muguang City, they were not very familiar with each other. So even if there was a completely unfamiliar patrol team passing by in front of them, they did not have any doubts. The military discipline is quite strict, and the line of defense is also very reasonable. From the looks of the soldiers, their food and sleep are not bad, and their mental state is also very normal. Generally speaking, this is a good army with good combat effectiveness. After pretending to patrol for more than an hour, Rog came to a conclusion that he already knew. If the level of the garrison in Muguang City was not good, even with the two female Thor Vigtigny and Weigelf, they could not stop the attack of the Asgard soldiers. Could it be that he could only go back like this tonight? Although no matter whether the loopholes in the line of defense were found or not, it would not affect the final judgment of the commission. But coming here in the middle of the night and then leaving without doing anything was not in line with Rog's character. Just as he was considering whether to do something temporarily to let the garrison of Muguang City have a full night, a real patrol team came towards them. Password. Rog wanted to bring his doppelganger team over, but the leader of the opposing team asked for the password. Rog didn't answer, he just silently opened his Sharingan. Sharingan, Genjutsu. After seeing Rog's blood-red eyes, the patrol captain was instantly hypnotized. Just as the patrol captain was about to lead the team away, a young soldier in the middle of the team suddenly shouted, "Captain, they didn't answer the password." As the saying goes, if you don't seek death, you won't die. Rog had originally planned to let this team go and stir up trouble elsewhere. However, this young soldier directly interrupted his plan and successfully obtained a VIP ticket to hell for himself. Kill them all. Rog and the others weren't the only ones here. There were also the other garrisons that had just been replaced. The 9 doppelgangers shot at the same time, more than 40 garrisons, including the patrol team, only lasted for less than a minute before all of them turned into corpses. When the doppelganger killed all the surrounding witnesses, Rog removed the doppelganger and quickly left. Although the garrisons didn't have time to send out an alarm signal, their bodies would be found sooner or later, so Rog didn't bother to continue to disguise himself and directly rushed to the more valuable targets. If you want to quickly destroy the morale of an army, there are 2 ways. One is to carry out a decapitation operation and directly destroy the command system of the army. This is Rog's preferred method, but here, the difficulty of the decapitation operation is a bit high, so he directly abandoned this plan. As for the second method, it is to destroy the logistical support system of the army, that is, burn the military food. This kind of thing, Rog just did it once half a month ago, and he can be regarded as a skilled technician. Under the cover of the night, Rog moved forward quickly like a ghost. Although he still didn't know where the rations were hidden, it wasn't a difficult task for him to find them. Intimidation, threats, torture, hypnosis. After several efficient inquiries, Rog successfully learned the location of Muguang City's military food storage from a few unlucky guys. Because of his attack half a month ago, Muguang City no longer concentrated all the military food in one place, but stored it in 5 different warehouses. They have become cautious. The amount of military food stored in the 5 warehouses varied. Rog directly excluded the warehouse with the most military food and planned to go to the warehouse with the second most military food. Just as he took a few steps, he suddenly remembered something, and then took out an Asgard gold coin from his pocket. He saw him throw the gold coin, and then after confirming the front and back, he repeated this action 3 times. After these rounds of random selection, he finally determined the final goal. The goal, the warehouse with the 4th most military food storage. The reason why he used the method of throwing the gold coin to determine the target was purely because Weigelf's strong 6th sense left a deep impression on him. He didn't want to fall into an ambush prepared by the enemy because of a random choice he made. After determining the target warehouse, Rog didn't go immediately, but summoned 4 shadow clones. In the face of an enemy like Weigelf, no matter how cautious he is, it is not too much. The main body went to the 4th warehouse, and the 4 shadow clones went to the other 4 warehouses. In this way, even if he bumped into Weigelf in the 4th warehouse, he could directly go to the other warehouses through the Thor. This is not fear, this is necessary caution, the caution of a ninja. After confirming that there is no problem, Rog began to go to the 4th warehouse. Although there are a lot of soldiers guarding, it is still normal. There is no particularly strong energy fluctuation around, this should not be a trap. After coming to the 4th military food warehouse, Rog first used chakra perception to perceive the surrounding environment, and then rushed to the warehouse like lightning. Fire release, grand fire annihilation. The blazing flames rushed to the warehouse like a huge wave, and then under Rog's gaze, it was blocked. A wall-like energy barrier appeared out of thin air, blocking all the blazing flames of the grand fire annihilation. At the same time, a hemispherical barrier with a diameter of several kilometers was instantly formed. When the energy barrier appeared, Rog established a link with the Flying Thunder God on the Shadow Clones, and planned to directly leave here with the Flying Thor. However, the appearance of the hemispherical barrier completely shattered his hope. The Flying Thor technique disappeared. Chapter 109. No, it didn't disappear. It's that the entire space was completely isolated. Although the strength of the shadow doppelganger is not as good as his main body, but to silently destroy his shadow doppelganger and erase the Flying Thunder God technique from the shadow doppelganger, it is definitely not something that the Vannas of Muguang City can do. To be able to break the connection of the Flying Thor technique, only a barrier that also has the power of space can do it. So what is the function of this hemispherical barrier in front of him? It's very obvious. I didn't expect that you would be willing to waste so many resources on me. When Rog spoke, the energy barrier in front of the warehouse door disappeared, and the 2 sisters, Vigtigny and Weigelf, wearing pale golden armor, came out. As long as we can kill you, it's worth it even if we have to pay more resources. As soon as the voice fell, the blue cloak on Vigtigny's body fluttered without wind, and a light blue lightning appeared around her. Is it necessary? Didn't I just say that you drool in your sleep? Getting angry over such a small matter isn't something a qualified commander would do. Compared with the frosty Vigtigny, Rog at this time was much more casual, as if he didn't realize that he was in a trap. On the surface, he was still as calm as ever. But in fact, he has been silently praying in his heart. Thor, if you have a little conscience, come and save me quickly. Small matter. You actually think this is a small matter? After hearing Rog's words, the lightning on Vigtigny's body suddenly became thicker, and even her eyes flashed with a light blue current. Because of Rog's words, now the entire garrison of Muguang City knows that their commander drools when she sleeps. This news even began to spread in the capital of Warner Protoss. After living for so many years, Vigtigny felt the power of public opinion for the first time. Rog must die. Feeling Vigtigny's murderous intent, Rog directly summoned his Thunder Fan and Kusanagi sword, ready to fight at any time. Fortunately, he had the occult scroll with him. Otherwise, he could only use the Flying Thor kunai to fight against Vigtigny. Although Vigtigny was a woman, she was a woman who had awakened the divine power of thunder. Moreover, she was a woman who was in a state of extreme anger. When facing such an enemy, one could never be too careful. Moreover, she had Weigelf, who had a strong 6th sense, by her side. The battle between the 2 female Thor from Warner Protoss and the upright ninja from Earth was about to start. Vigtigny didn't give Rog too much time to prepare. At the moment when Rog summoned his Kusanagi sword and Thunder Fan, she had already raised the 2-handed greatsword in her hand and attacked Rog like lightning. It was just a simple straight charge, but Vigtigny broke out with all her strength. Her whole person was like a real lightning that came in front of Rog, and then a thunderous strike. Boom! The two-handed greatsword wrapped in lightning and thunder fan fiercely collided with each other, and a strong explosion like a small nuclear bomb broke out. Victigny and Rog were blown away by the explosion at the same time. The powerful shock wave of the explosion also directly killed all the guards near the warehouse. This woman is really crazy. Even if most of the energy was absorbed by the thunder fan, Victigny's sword still made Rog's right hand slightly numb. If he didn't have sage body and use strange body technique at the first moment, Victigny's sword was enough to send him flying. Shadow clone technique. Before Rog landed on the ground, he quickly used shadow clone technique. His whole person seemed to be infinitely multiplying, and instantly created 30 shadow clones. Of course, these shadow clones were not used to attack Victigny. In front of Victigny, who controlled lightning, these shadow clones were no different from balloons. As long as she released lightning once, she could take away most of the shadow clones. When these shadow clones appeared, they didn't hesitate and used body flicker technique at the first moment. Like a flock of frightened birds, they quickly disappeared from the warehouse. This hemispherical spatial barrier was like an independent space. It isolated Rog from the outside world's Thor technique. Since he couldn't connect to the outside world's flying Thor technique, then he could only set up flying Thor techniques inside the barrier. The 30 shadow clones that he just summoned were his flying Thor technique. The original body is still here. Those that left are all clones. Weigelf's voice immediately sounded. Rog wasn't surprised that Weigelf could see through his shadow clones. However, even if the shadow clones were seen through, it wouldn't affect his plan at all. When the shadow clones scattered and ran in different directions of the barrier, one by one, flying Thor techniques appeared in his perception. With the flying Thor technique, the flying Thor was the real flying Thor. While the shadow clones were constantly setting up flying Thor techniques, Victigny attacked Rog again. However, this time, she pounced on empty air. When the two-handed greatsword in Victigny's hand was 10 centimeters away from him, Rog activated flying Thor and instantly disappeared from Victigny's sight. Admit defeat. This is already my home ground. You are not my opponent. Rog's voice sounded more than 10 meters away. However, Victigny obviously wouldn't stop here. The moment she saw Rog's figure, she once again waved her greatsword and rushed over. Victigny's speed was indeed very fast. However, for Rog, who already had enough coordinates to teleport, this speed was still too slow. Boom! A 10-meter deep pit appeared on the ground where Rog was standing. However, there was nothing in the pit other than gravel. Why bother? Rog sighed helplessly. Can't they just sit down and have a good chat? Why do they have to fight to the death? And Victigny, as the commander of Muguang City, shouldn't she put the city defense first? Why must she make things difficult for an upright ninja like him? It seems that she couldn't bear to see her sister Victigny being teased alone. Weigelf also joined the battle. Compared with Victigny's two-handed greatsword, Weigelf's weapon was much more normal. It was a one-handed rapier of normal length. When Victigny once again attacked Rog like a violent lightning, Weigelf also launched an attack at the same time. Boom! Victigny's attack once again missed, and a normal house was blasted into ruins. Through flying Thor, Rog easily avoided Victigny's attack. But at the moment when he had just completed the teleportation, a strong intuition of danger emerged in his mind, prompting him to instinctively use flying Thor again. Before teleporting away, he saw a rapier shining with electric light appear in front of him. Chapter 110. Referee, I want to report, someone here is cheating. Rog's teleportation coordinates at this time were randomly selected by him, but Weigelf seemed to have known that he would be teleported here and came here in advance. If his speed was slower, then the thin sword with electric light would have skewered his head like a stick of sugar-coated haws. Does your sixth sense have to be so strong? Do you want me to live? Although he avoided Weigelfa's attack at the last moment, Rog couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. This little girl was much more ruthless than her sister. Victigny had a fiery personality and was easily impulsive. This could be easily seen from the weapon she chose and the behavior she showed. Weigelf was just the opposite of Victigny. She was the kind of person who didn't talk much, but once she made a move, she was ruthless. Moreover, her speed was faster than Victigny. Compared with Rog, Weigelf was more like a professional assassin. In order to avoid such a situation, Rog did not continue to stay near the warehouse, but teleported to a roof hundreds of meters away. Until this time, Thor, who was outside Muguang City, finally found that something was wrong. He waved Thor's hammer and flew into the air. He saw a space barrier with a diameter of several kilometers suddenly covering an area of Muguang City, exuding a moonlight-like light. This kind of large-scale barrier consumed a lot of energy every second. Even if Muguang City had sufficient energy supply, this was an extremely extravagant and wasteful behavior. Thor silently looked at the space barrier, and a thought involuntarily emerged in his mind. Did Rog really just go to inquire about the defensive line of Muguang City tonight? Could it be that he, although he didn't know what Rog had done, as the commander of an army, Thor knew what he had to do now? The warriors of Asgard quickly mobilized, and a siege battle that was not part of the plan began. When Thor led the Asgard warriors to attack Muguang City, Rog was also thinking about the next tactic. Now, there were only two paths in front of him. The first method was to use the flying Thor to constantly change his position until the spatial barrier ran out of energy. This method was also the most stable one at the moment. Other than being a little cowardly, there were no other shortcomings. The second option was to defeat the Victigny sisters, or use brute force to forcefully destroy the spatial barrier. If it was a one-on-one fight, whether it was Victigny or Weigelf, he had the confidence to win. But if it was 1 against 2, he didn't have much confidence. After all, neither of them were ordinary women. Even Thor, who was also good at discharging electricity, could not gain the upper hand when facing the two of them, let alone him, an earthling with a weaker body. As for relying on brute force to destroy the spatial barrier, this kind of thing was just a dream. If he had such strength, he wouldn't have been forced to dodge everywhere like he was now. Do you want to be a coward for a lifetime, or do you want to be a hero, even if it's only for a few minutes? He didn't know why, but this sentence suddenly appeared in his mind. This sudden sentence caused him, who was originally flashing away, to be slightly stunned. He was actually distracted in the battle. In the next second, Weigelfa's 2-finger-wide thin sword came in front of him. Clang! The tip of the sword flashing with electricity failed to stab Rog in the end, but it was blocked by the thunderous round fan. Seeing that her attack did not hit the target, Wiggle quickly retreated. Just at the moment when Weigelf had just made space, Victigny's two-handed giant sword followed and slashed at Rog. Boom! The raging electric current was like an out-of-control dragon, attacking everything around it. The violent energy did not differentiate between friend and foe, attacking everything around it. Victigny took advantage of the situation and retreated, avoiding the violent energy storm. In the middle of the energy storm, Rog, who was holding the round fan, was motionless like a wooden man. If it wasn't for the strong chakra light shining on his body, Victigny would even suspect that Rog had directly lost consciousness, so he stayed in the energy storm stupidly. At this time, Rog was very awake, it could even be said that he was very awake. Although there was the protection of chakra, the electric current in the energy storm still gave him an incomparable stimulation. The reason why he didn't Flying Thunder God was that he wanted to personally feel the thunder power released by Victigny, and compare it with his newly developed ninjutsu. Without the subsequent energy input, the energy storm, which used thunder power as the main energy source, completely dissipated in the air after more than 10 seconds. When the energy storm dissipated, Rog put the round fan behind his back, and directly condensed a Rasengan in his right hand. It was just an ordinary Rasengan, there was no change in nature, and the size was also the normal size of a palm. However, in the next second, Rog began to inject the Thunder attribute chakra into the Rasengan. In the past, Crown Prince Kamui created the strongest ninjutsu of the Wind Release ninjutsu by injecting the Wind attribute chakra, Futon, Rasen Shuriken. After fighting with the three Storm Brothers, Rog also began to develop his own unique Rasengan. Compared to Crown Prince Kamui, Rog was more proficient in Thunder and Fire Release, so his Rasengan certainly couldn't be based on the Wind attribute chakra. The Rasengan, which was originally the size of a palm, instantly expanded to the size of a basketball. At the same time, a light blue lightning appeared on the surface of the Rasengan, and it madly flowed irregularly, and showed a phenomenon of electric current discharge. Raitun, Spiral Railgun. Strictly speaking, this ninjutsu was in an incomplete state, because Rog didn't do any actual combat testing of this ninjutsu. However, it was obviously not the time to care about these small details. The moment the spiral railgun was formed, Weigelfa's sixth sense sent out a strong warning signal. Danger! Retreat quickly! Without any hesitation, Weigelf came to Vigtigny's side like lightning, and directly pulled Vigtigny's right hand, and quickly retreated. Looking at Vigtigny's and Vigtigny's figures retreating quickly, Rog slowly raised his right hand, and silently aimed the spiral railgun at the two sisters. The reason why he named this ninjutsu spiral railgun was, on one hand, because this ninjutsu had a super long attack range and super fast attack speed, just like a real railgun. On the other hand, it was his little faith. The electric sparks dancing on your fingertips are my undying faith in this life. Chapter 111. Only the super electromagnetic gun will last forever. Boom! The electromagnetic gun in Rog's hand disappeared in an instant. A light blue beam of light entwined with an electric snake emerged out of thin air and crossed the entire Muguang city. The electromagnetic gun first hit the two sisters, Vigtigny, and then it penetrated all the obstacles in the attack path without any reduction in power. Houses, enchantments, city walls, nothing could stop this light blue beam of light. It wasn't until it hit a small mountain more than 10 kilometers away from the city that the beam of light finally stopped. The next second, an orange-red fireball soared into the sky like the sun. The earth began to shake. The hurricane formed by the shock wave struck the surroundings like a tsunami. Wherever it passed, it was a mess. When the flames of the explosion dissipated, when everything began to return to calm, the hill that originally stood outside Muguang City had completely disappeared. Instead, there was a circular deep pit with a diameter of several kilometers. Electromagnetic gun, one shot, Seoul. Like a natural disaster, the battlefield that was originally fighting suddenly quieted down. The entire battlefield seemed to have been paused suddenly, and everyone couldn't help but look in the same direction. Is this really something that a human can do? Regarding the fact that Rog is an Earthling, it has been spread to Asgard and Warner Protoss as early as a few months ago. A guy who is active on the battlefield like he is on steroids and has super combat power, no matter where he is, he will be the focus of investigation. But after seeing the scene in front of them, they found that they still underestimated Rog. After the battlefield was strangely silent for more than 10 seconds, there was a burst of excited shouts. Those who shouted excitedly were all Asgard soldiers. As for the Warner Protoss soldiers on the defending side, their faces were as ugly as they could be at this time. The existence of high-end combat power can not only improve the combat power of the entire army, but also greatly improve the morale of the army. The terrifying power of the electromagnetic gun raised the morale of Asgard to the peak in an instant. The siege of Muguang City also began once again amidst the howls of the Asgard soldiers. Unlike the excited Asgard warriors, Rog wasn't happy at all. The power displayed by the spiral electromagnetic cannon did not disappoint him. In fact, it had far exceeded his expectations. However, the after effects of the spiral electromagnetic gun were far beyond his expectations. Other than the numbness in his right arm, he couldn't feel anything. He couldn't even clench his fist. Not only that, the flow of chakra in his right arm was also severely obstructed. It felt like the F1 track had turned into a sidewalk. Don't be fooled by the fact that he was standing motionless like a peerless expert. In reality, his battle prowess had been severely reduced by several times. Fortunately, there was no one who would attack him now. Victigny and Weigelf, who were most likely to attack him, were now lying weakly in the ruins of the house, gasping for air. Especially Victigny, she was vomiting blood from time to time. Although the spiral electromagnetic gun didn't directly penetrate their bodies, even if they were just grazed by it, the powerful power of the spiral electromagnetic gun still brought unimaginable damage to them. If they hadn't awakened the power of thunder, their bodies would have been completely destroyed by the violent energy of the electromagnetic gun at the moment they were grazed by the spiral electromagnetic gun, and then instantly scorched and dissipated. The only fortunate thing was that Rog had not conducted any actual combat tests on the spiral electromagnetic gun ninjutsu before. So when he first used this ninjutsu, there was a small deviation in his accuracy. This was also one of the important reasons why Victigny could survive. At the moment when Rog had just fired the spiral electromagnetic gun, Weigelf received a death reminder from her intuition. But this reminder was meaningless. At the moment of firing, the spiral electromagnetic gun had already reached its maximum speed, and she had no time to dodge. So she could only watch helplessly as the spiral electromagnetic gun came in front of her, and then, Rog's current state wasn't very good, but Victigny's state was worse than his. After confirming with Chakra's perception, he began to walk towards Victigny. The enemy hero's health was low, and this was the best opportunity to take the last hit. After continuously using the body flicker technique, Rog came in front of Victigny and looked down at them lying on the ground. Now, they were no longer as majestic as before. If they weren't wearing armor, they would look like refugees who had been stranded in a foreign land because of the war. There was still a little difference. They were refugees with good figures and outstanding looks. Pulling out the Kusanagi sword from his waist with his left hand, Rog calmly said to the two of them, "In your next life, be an ordinary woman, and don't come to the battlefield again." After saying that, Rog raised the Kusanagi sword in his hand and stabbed forward. Just as he stabbed with the Kusanagi sword, a lightning bolt as thick as an arm fell from the sky and directly struck the Kusanagi sword in his hand. Boom! This sudden lightning bolt didn't hit the Kusanagi sword, but fell to the ground. You can't kill them, their mother is Gerwig. Killing them will provoke an all-out war between Asari and Warner Protoss. The one who summoned the lightning to attack Rog was none other than Thor. After flying in front of Rog, he briefly explained the reason. "You're the commander, you have the final say." Since Thor said so, Rog could only put away the Kusanagi sword and ignore Victigny and Sora. Although Victigny and Sora avoided death, they also became Thor's prisoners of war. Maguang City eventually fell into the hands of Thor. After capturing Victigny and Sora, it was only a matter of time before Maguang City fell. Except for some stubborn generals who led the troops to break out, most of the garrison chose to surrender. Asgard successfully took down Maguang City, a city with great strategic value. According to the post-war statistics, Maguang City had more than 40,000 garrison troops. Nearly 5,000 people died in the siege, 30,000 people surrendered, and nearly 8,000 people successfully escaped. Asgard, as the side that attacked the city, also paid the price of more than 6,000 people. Although Asgard's total force in Warnerheim was more than 50,000 people, more than 10,000 of them were garrisoned in 7 camps, so the troops that really followed Thor to fight were less than 40,000 people. The army of less than 40,000 people had to watch over 30,000 prisoners, and at the same time, they had to defend Maguang City and guard against the counterattack of Warner Protoss. Thor was having a headache now, but he wasn't the one with the biggest headache because Rog was having a bigger headache than him. My right hand won't be wasted like this, right? Chapter 112. It's been 5 days since the original battle, but Rog's right hand still hasn't recovered to the state before he used the electromagnetic gun. The physical damage was completely healed in less than 2 days thanks to the immortal body's powerful recovery ability. However, the chakra meridian system in his right arm is still in a serious state of blockage. For this reason, he specifically consulted the military doctor of Asgard and got a useless answer. Pay attention to rest, and you'll be fine after a few days of rest. If it weren't for the medical doctor's rich medical experience and good reputation in Asgard, Rog would definitely regard him as an ignorant and incompetent charlatan. If only there was a medical ninja here. It's best if it's a female medical ninja with a golden ponytail and a proud figure. Putting those unrealistic fantasies behind him, Rog opened the exchange page of the system and looked at the medical ninja page. To exchange or not to exchange, that's the problem. After thinking about it for a few minutes, he finally dispelled the idea. He's good at killing people, but saving people is out of the question. It's impossible to have a medical ninja, not in this life. Although the chakra meridian system in his right arm is still in a serious state of blockage, compared to the time when he used the electromagnetic gun, it's already improved a lot. It's probably equivalent to upgrading from a sidewalk to a bicycle path. So even if he doesn't do anything, the Sage mode will repair the damaged meridian system. The only problem is that he doesn't know how long it will take to completely restore it to its original state. For a right-handed ninja, it's a very serious problem that he can't use chakra with his right hand. This will not only affect the ninja's strength, but also affect the ninja's self-confidence. So he intends to solve this problem in his own way as soon as possible. If he guessed correctly, the blockage of the meridian system in his right arm should be related to his imitation of the thunder god's power. The electromagnetic gun is a brand new ninjutsu that he created based on the Rasengan and added the thunder god's power to chakra, and then borrowed the railgun, Bijadama, thunder god, and other things. Most of them were reliable. The only thing that wasn't reliable was the divine power of thunder that he had imitated. Of course, it is also possible that the side effects of ninjutsu are too great, beyond the tolerance of the meridian system, so this situation occurred. However, no matter what the reason was, he could not allow anything to happen to the golden right hand. He doesn't know any medical ninjutsu, and there is no way to quickly improve his sage body, so he intends to use a simple and violent method with high success rate to solve this problem by force. Since chakra couldn't solve the problem, he would use the immortal technique chakra to solve it. If he remembered correctly, the sage mode of the Shikatsu forest had the ability to borrow natural energy to greatly increase the vitality of the body. Not only could it increase one's speed and defense, but it could also increase one's attack range and power through natural energy. As for the Senjutsu chakra, it can increase the power of his ninjutsu, taijutsu, and genjutsu by leaps and bounds. This is not something he needs to pay too much attention to at the moment. It is said that when the sage body of Hashirama meets the sage mode of the Shikatsu forest, there will be some wonderful changes. As for whether this information is reliable or not, Rog can't be sure. Unspent ninja coins, 395. The sage mode of the Shikatsu forest required 400 ninja coins. As long as he completes one more commission, he will have enough ninja coins. Thor, he can directly exclude him. He shouldn't have any commissions in the near future. The 3 warriors of Sengoku, their URU medal quota for the next few hundred years has already been used up. As poor people, they won't have any commissions for the time being. Sif, although she has enough URU medal quota, she doesn't particularly approve of Rog's commission. It can even be said that she is very against it, so she can also be excluded. As for the rest of the officers and generals who have URU medal quota, forget it, I won't consider them. After thinking about it seriously, Rog found that there are only a few potential clients in Asgard. How about expanding the scope of business, or adding Warner Protoss to the client whitelist? Although he has killed a lot of Warner Protoss people in recent months, strictly speaking, he is just a hired thug by Asari. But this can only be thought in his mind. Compared with the commission, Warner Protoss may want to know how to kill him. Using that kind of inhumane, bloody, and painful way to kill him. After sighing helplessly, Rog left his room and walked to the other side of the city. After 5 days of reorganization, Asgard has completely controlled this extraordinary city. Although there are still some stubborn people who launched some meaningless attacks from time to time, it didn't affect Asgard's control of Muguang City. After passing through a few streets, Rog came to a manor that was strictly guarded by Asgard soldiers and didn't hesitate to consume energy. Lord Rog. When he came to the gate, the Asgard soldier in charge of guarding the gate immediately saluted Rog. "I'll go in and take a look, you can continue with your mission." After saying that, he passed through the specially set up spirit formation gate and entered the magnificently decorated manor. Although the area of this manor is not very large, the decoration is extremely exquisite. Even Rog, an earthling, had to sigh at this ingenious alien architectural style. When he came to the hall of the manor, he saw 2 familiar faces. After seeing Rog's arrival, the hot-tempered Victigny immediately stood up and rushed towards him. At this time, Victigny completely lost her previous valiant posture, even the fist she waved was as weak as an ordinary person. At this time, "Do you still hate me so much?" Rog easily avoided Victigny's fist, pressed his left hand on her shoulder, and then pushed her back with a little force. Although Rog only pushed her slightly, Victigny stepped back more than 10 steps before finally stabilizing her body. "Give up, you can't be my opponent now." After speaking, Rog ignored the angry Victigny and found a seat to sit down and poured himself a cup of tea. "What do you want to do?" Weigelf, who was sitting opposite him, asked. "Nothing, I just want to know if you have any unfulfilled wishes." Chapter 113. After hearing Rog's words, Weigelf, who was sitting opposite him, rolled her eyes at him, and then slowly said, "If you have something to say, just say it. You don't have the intention to kill me and my sister, otherwise you wouldn't have locked us up here." Weigelf is not only calmer than Victigny, but she is also more thoughtful than Victigny when considering things. So she won't be distracted by Rog's words. "I was going to make a little joke with you. In that case, I will say it clearly. Do you have any commission that you want to complete now? If there is, I can help you complete it. Of course, letting you go, or killing Thor and so on are not in the scope of this." Rog said straightforwardly, completely ignoring the fact that he was the one who had captured Vigdini and her companion. "What is the price?" Weigelf asked calmly. "This depends on the specific content of your commission. As long as the reward is not excessive, I can accept it." Considering the current situation of Victigny, Rog didn't specifically specify the reward. What he wants now is just ninja coins. As for the reward, it's just icing on the cake. Weigelf looked at Rog seriously, and then continued to say in a calm tone, "No. You can leave now." "Really? That's really a pity." After getting a clear reply from Weigelf, Rog stood up directly and walked straight towards the door. He originally planned to come over and try his luck. If there is a commission, of course, everyone will be happy. If there is no commission, he won't care too much. Just as Rog was about to leave the hall, Victigny suddenly said, "Wait, I have a commission." Rog stopped and turned to look at Victigny. "I want to fight with you. If you win, the wrath of the hurricane is yours." After that, Victigny pointed to the 2-handed greatsword placed in the corner of the hall. "It's not that I look down on you, but in your current state, you can't be my opponent. Even if I stand still and let you use 1 hand and 2 feet, you can't beat me." Although Thor didn't put Victigny in a real prisoner camp, in order to avoid some unpleasant things, he still made some restrictions on them. For example, adding a seal on them. Because of the existence of the seal, Victigny and Victigny not only lost control of their thunder power, but even their physical fitness was suppressed by the seal to the level of ordinary Warner Protoss soldiers. It was also because of this that Saul was at ease to lock them up in this manner instead of the underground prison that was strictly guarded. Although I don't understand your power attribute, I'm very sure that you must have a way to suppress your own level to the same level as me. Under the same conditions, one-on-one. Whoever loses will hand over their weapon to the winner. Victigny said as she walked towards Rog. When she finished, she was less than a meter in front of Rog. Being too competitive isn't a good thing, but since you insist, I don't mind fulfilling your little wish. As soon as his voice fell, a commission scroll appeared in Rog's hand. The commission is for me to fight with you once, and the reward is for your Wrath of the Hurricane. You think you can win? I've never lost in front of a woman. Although she was not very happy with Rog's current tone and attitude, Victigny still took the commission scroll and wrote the content. When Victigny finished writing the commission, the system also gave the result of the judgment, and a new commission task appeared in the commission page. Commission content: fight with Victigny once. Commission status: incomplete. Commission reward: 5 ninja coins. 5 ninja coins commission reward. Just as Rog had expected, the system had given him the lowest reward. When do you want to start? As soon as Rog finished speaking, Victigny's fist came in front of him, showing his answer with practical action. Although Victigny's attack was very sudden, it was limited by her current sealed body. Her punch was not only weak, but also not fast. With this speed, Rog could avoid it with his eyes closed. But at this time, not only did he not avoid the punch, but he also took the initiative to stretch out his right hand, letting his right palm take the initiative to appear in front of Victigny's fist. It turned out to be this level of strength. After blocking it with his right palm, or after feeling Victigny's current strength, he took a step back and took the initiative to open the distance. Obviously, Victigny did not think too much about it. When she noticed that Rog had retreated, she immediately rushed forward and launched a series of quick attacks. Rog didn't resist Victigny's fist like before, but kept retreating, and at the same time silently remembered Victigny's current speed, attack speed, and reaction speed. After getting enough information, he suddenly accelerated his retreat, and instantly opened a distance of 4 or 5 meters from Victigny. You cheated. Victigny said discontentedly. Let me correct you, I didn't cheat just now, I just wanted to confirm what level you are now. Next, it's the official battle. Even if he didn't use chakra, Rog's physical strength was far beyond the sealed Victigny. So in order to make Victigny accept her loss, he still needed to deliberately control his strength and speed to maintain his level as much as possible to be on the same level as Victigny. After saying that, Rog took a starting position that Victigny had never seen before, and said very seriously. Wing Chun, Rog. Although Victigny didn't know what Wing Chun was, looking at Rog's current appearance, she knew that Rog was finally serious. Next, Rog and Victigny staged an informal martial arts competition between Earth's martial arts and Warner Protoss fighting skills in this hall. Spread, arms, prone, small thoughts, bridge seeking, index, wooden dummy technique. Although Rog hadn't officially learned Wing Chun before, after gaining the Sharingan, he silently copied this famous fist technique. This was the first time he used Wing Chun in a battle, and from the current situation, the effect was pretty good. Although Rog didn't use strength and speed that exceeded Victigny's, he still easily gained the upper hand. Victigny's fighting skills weren't weak, and she was experienced enough, but unfortunately, she met Rog who had better skills and more experience. Chapter 114. As time went by, Victigny's breathing became more and more rapid. Her movements began to change, and there were more and more flaws in her attacks. At this time, Victigny had completely lost her initial confidence. Even if Rog suppressed his own level to the same level as her, she still couldn't cause any injury to Rog. Can't win, really can't win. This discovery made Vigtigny begin to despair. She originally thought that as long as Rog didn't have those fancy abilities, she would be able to defeat Rog. But it turned out that even if Rog didn't use ninjutsu and chakra, she still wasn't Rog's opponent. Disappointment quickly enveloped her entire heart. After persisting for a few minutes, Vigtigny stopped attacking, then without saying a word, she lowered her head and left the hall. It's finally over. When Vigtigny stopped attacking, Rog finally breathed a sigh of relief. Although he didn't have any interest in the Hurricane's fury, but in order to complete the system's commission, he picked up the Hurricane's fury and then left the hall. Looking at her sister Vigtigny and Rog leaving the hall without saying a word, Weigelf slightly frowned. After leaving the manor, Rog opened the system's commission page and took a look to confirm the completion of the commission. Commission content: fight with Vigtigny. Commission status: completed. Commission reward: 5 ninja coins sent. Unspent ninja coins: 400. Finally, he had enough ninja coins to exchange for the Sage Mode inheritance. Rog planned to return directly to his room and then begin to exchange for the Sage Mode inheritance. But just as he was about to return to his room with the Flying Thunder God, he suddenly remembered something. I'm going to leave for a while, I'm not sure how long it will take. If the war ends early, help me give this Hurricane's fury to Vigtigny. Rog found Thor in the City Lord's Hall, and then under Thor's confused expression, he gave him the Hurricane's fury and gave him a kunai. Before Thor could ask, he returned to his room with the Flying Thunder God, and then threw all the Kusanagi sword, round fan, armor, and other things back into the summoned scroll. After exchanging for the Sage Mode inheritance, he will immediately start practicing the Sage Mode. However, Muguang City is not a very good place to practice. After preparing the food and living supplies, he left Muguang City alone. A few hours later, he arrived at a primeval forest where there were few people. This forest was quite a distance away from Muguang City. More importantly, there was no strategic significance in this place. So whether it's Asari or Warner Protoss, they won't send any soldiers here. After using chakra perception to perceive the situation in the forest, he opened the system's exchange page and exchanged for the Sage Mode inheritance. 400 ninja coins instantly returned to 0, and all the information of the Sage Mode appeared in his mind. Sage Mode, in a strict sense, is also a kind of ninjutsu. It's just that the Sage Mode uses the Sage Mode chakra, and the ninjutsu released with the Sage Mode chakra is also called Sage Mode. By fusing physical energy and spiritual energy, one can obtain the ordinary chakra. On the basis of physical energy and spiritual energy, plus natural energy, one can form the Sage Mode chakra. The principle is very simple, but the difficult part is that the 3 types of energy must maintain an absolute balance, that is, according to a strict 1/3 ratio, to obtain the Sage Mode chakra. If the natural energy is more than 1/3, it will be swallowed by the natural energy and turned into stone. If it's less than 1/3, it can't fuse chakra, and naturally can't enter the Sage Mode. Rog has known the principle of chakra for a long time. But the key is that he doesn't know how to absorb the natural energy, and he doesn't know how to use it. In the Sage Mode information of the Shikatsu Forest, there is all the information he needs, including a set of training materials and notes. As for which senior these notes are from, there is no note in the information. Under normal circumstances, the Sage Mode can only be practiced in the 3 inheritance grounds, namely Shikatsu Forest, Mount Mayaboku, and Ryuchi Cave. The system considerately considered this problem, so it gave him a new ability. Inherent Barrier, Shikatsu Forest. Once activated, it can create the real Shikatsu Forest and replace the surrounding space with the real Shikatsu Forest. Simply put, the real Shikatsu Forest will replace the real world, but only for the duration of the inherent barrier. But compared to the real Shikatsu Forest, this Shikatsu Forest is very different. In the real Shikatsu Forest, there is a living slug that has lived for a long time, and its size is unknown. But in the real Shikatsu Forest, there is no living slug. If he wants to have a living slug in the real Shikatsu forest, he can exchange it from the system. But the exchange price is a bit expensive. It's just a little cheaper than a tailed beast. After going through the information about Sage Mode in his mind a few times, Rog finally focused on the new ability, Inherent Barrier, Wet Bone Forest. He now has sufficient evidence to prove that the reason why the Sage Mode can be sold for 400 ninja coins is because of the Inherent Barrier. If there is no Inherent Barrier, the exchange price will be at least 50% lower, or even more. After confirming the activation method of the Inherent Barrier, Shikatsu Forest, he decisively activated the Inherent Barrier. In just a moment, the alien forest in front of him disappeared. It was replaced by a tall, Earth-style rainforest. Looking at the scenery in front of him, the Shikatsu Forest is not mysterious at all. Except for the high humidity in the air, there is not much difference between this place and an ordinary rainforest. Of course, this may also be because he is too weak right now, so he can't discover the mystery of the Shikatsu Forest. A Shikatsu Forest without a living slug is a Shikatsu Forest without a soul. After silently cursing in his heart, he began his first immortal technique, Cultivation. Shikatsu Forest, Mount Mayaboku, and Ryuchi Cave. Other than the fact that their locations were very mysterious, more importantly, they all inherited the mysterious Immortal Mode. And their Immortal Mode was even more different. Not only are their appearances different, but their abilities also have their own characteristics. Sage Mode Chakra can turn ninjutsu into Sage Mode, and greatly increase the power. This is something that the Sage Mode of the 3 secret places can do. In addition, their Sage Mode has some unique advantages. Ryuchi Cave Sage Mode can use natural energy to perceive the surrounding life and chakra. Mount Mayaboku's Sage Mode can greatly increase the amount of chakra, increase the perception ability, and can also summon Mount Mayaboku's toads to release Sage Mode. Shikatsu Forest's Sage Mode can greatly increase the vitality, agility, defense, and can also increase the attack range of taijutsu with the help of natural energy. Chapter 115. A strong physique, a huge amount of chakra, and a tenacious will, these were the 3 main points of cultivation in the Shikatsu Forest's Immortal Mode cultivation notes written by a senior who did not wish to reveal his name. For an ordinary ninja, these 3 prerequisites may be a bit difficult to achieve. But for Rog, these 3 prerequisites are basically non-existent. Hashirama's Sage Mode, Ichibi's Chakra, and his tenacious will, Shikatsu Forest Sage Mode seems to be tailor-made for him. Of course, this is just a fantasy in his mind. After adjusting himself to his best condition, he sat cross-legged on the ground according to the requirements of cultivation. Then, he began to empty his mind. Relaxing the mind, letting the chakra flow naturally, perceiving the chakra in the body, perceiving the natural energy in the world, perceiving the whole world, then, his hands began to form seals, Zi, Chou, Yin, Mao, Chen, Si, Wu, Wei, Shen, Yu, Su, Hai. After rapidly forming 256 seals without stopping, Rog finally felt the legendary natural energy. Vast, pure, and filled the whole world, as if everything in the world was born from it. He didn't have time to sigh, this energy forced into his body. Swelling, tearing, swallowing, decomposing, all kinds of heart-wrenching pain instantly enveloped his whole body. At this moment, he finally understood why the note specifically said that the practitioner needs a tenacious will. Although he tried his best to keep himself awake, the pain acting on his body and mind at the same time was like the power of heaven and earth, he couldn't resist. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, just when he thought that his spirit was about to collapse, his consciousness suddenly entered a world that was only white. There was no color, no substance, and no energy. Rog was like a leaf that fell into a river, floating aimlessly in this world. After floating aimlessly for a long time, a green planet completely made of trees appeared in front of him. When he saw this green planet, he suddenly remembered something. Isn't this the planet he saw when he transplanted the sage mode? When this memory appeared in his mind, the pure white world suddenly disappeared. Instead, it was replaced by a vast starry sky. Rog didn't have time to think about it, his whole body rushed to the green planet like a meteor. Just when he was about to hit the green planet in an incomparably tragic way, all the scenes in front of him disappeared, and his consciousness instantly returned to his body. With the return of his consciousness, the first thing he felt was an uncontrollable strong hunger. Under the stimulation of hunger, his body's senses began to quickly return. Vision, touch, smell, hearing, and other senses were instantly restored. Until now, he had time to look at his current situation. His body, his limbs, and his IQ is still online. Except for the low amount of chakra, everything is fine. After repeatedly confirming his body condition, he took the summon, took it, of the food, of him. After eating and drinking his fill, he casually laid on the ground and began to recall the inexplicable scene from before. According to the records, when every cultivator perceives natural energy for the first time, they will have an inexplicable experience. The duration of this experience also varies from person to person. Some people can return to normal in a few minutes, some can return to normal in a few hours, and some can never return to normal. As for what the length of time means, there is no accurate answer at present. After all, the number of samples is not enough, and it is difficult to draw any effective conclusions. However, as long as one can feel this wonderful experience, it means that the cultivator has completed the first stage of the sage mode, the cultivation of sensing natural energy. Sensing natural energy, refining the immortal technique chakra, and entering the sage mode. This is the three-step cultivation of the sage mode. It looks very simple, but in fact, the first stage of sensing natural energy can already eliminate more than 90% of the cultivators. The second stage of refining the immortal technique chakra is much more difficult and dangerous than the first stage. If you can't sense natural energy, you can't cultivate the sage mode. But if there is an accident in the process of refining the immortal technique chakra, then the stone puppets will be waving at you. Time flies, it has been half a year since Rog left Maguang City. In this half a year, he has put almost all of his energy into cultivating the sage mode. For this reason, he deliberately referred to Prince Ming's accelerated cultivation buff. He has to say that the shadow clone jutsu is a very useful ninjutsu. In particular, the experience and memories would return to the original body after the seal was lifted. It was as if it was tailor-made for cultivation cheating. Due to the selfless dedication of these shadow clones, his immortal mode cultivation progressed at an unimaginable speed. With a clap of his hands, the eyeshadow appeared. After spending half a year, he finally mastered this rapid makeup technique and inherited the sage mode from the Shikatsu forest. Although the red eyeshadow can only last for 15 minutes, for the current him, it is completely enough. And as he guessed, the sage mode of the Shikatsu forest, the sage body, and the wood release have some unknown mysterious connection. After mastering the sage mode of the Shikatsu forest, he can clearly feel the changes in his physique, physical strength, and recovery ability have been improved qualitatively. The most intuitive feeling is that even if he releases the electromagnetic gun 3 times in a row, his right arm will not have any problem. The further improvement of the sage body also led to a further increase in his chakra capacity. The era of the Ichibi is over, and now it is the era of the Nibi. Compared with the increase of chakra, the changes of the wood release are much more ordinary. It is nothing more than the wood dragon and the wood golem becoming bigger and stronger, and adding a few more wood release ninjutsu. It's time to go back. After removing the inherent enchantment, Shikatsu forest, Rog began to perceive the Flying Thor Kunai's Flying Thor technique. Before leaving Maguang City, he deliberately left a Flying Thor Kunai for Thor, just for this moment. Found you. After perceiving the Flying Thor technique, his figure instantly disappeared from the forest. When his figure reappeared, the first thing he saw was Saul, whose clothes were in a mess and who was gasping for breath. Did I come back at the wrong time? Chapter 116. Thor's hammer was carelessly placed to the side, the armor on his body was also taken off, and sweat was dripping down his face. Beside him was a similarly exhausted Sif. How did you become like this? At this time, Thor was in an indescribable state, as if he had been ganged up on for several days. The god of the ocean, Njord, personally made a move. In order to cover the retreat of the army, Thor fought Njord alone. Thor didn't say anything. The one who answered Rog was Sif. Njord? What did you do to make Njord personally deal with you? The god of the ocean, Njord. His position in the Warner Protoss was probably equivalent to the position of the father of the gods, Odin in Asari. Although his strength was not as strong as Odin, in Warnerheim, he was definitely worthy of the title of the strongest. Under normal circumstances, Njord would absolutely not make a move against Thor and the others. Because once he made a move, it meant that the Warner Protoss broke the final agreement of kings not to participate in the war, and raised the level of the war to the level of an all-out war. In this way, the battle between Asari and Warner Protoss was no longer a small local confrontation, but an all-out war between the two races. To put it in simpler terms, Njord and Odin were Warner Protoss and Asari's nuclear weapons. Because both sides had nuclear weapons, even if there were some unpleasant local wars, both sides could maintain the most basic rationality. But if someone disregarded the agreement and used nuclear weapons, then what awaited them would be the same nuclear attack. Do you still remember the 3 Storm brothers that you killed? Thor looked at Rog with some helplessness, then said. Of course I remember. If it weren't for the 3 Storm brothers, he wouldn't have practiced Sage Mode in advance. So to a certain extent, he had to thank the 3 Storm brothers. If it weren't for their selfless contributions, he wouldn't have been so motivated to cultivate. They are Njord's descendants, and they are the more outstanding ones. Thor continued to explain, but Rog did not understand what this had to do with Njord personally taking action. The grass on the graves of the 3 Storm brothers was already more than a meter tall. If Njord wanted revenge, he would have done it long ago. On the battlefield, everyone relies on their own abilities. Even if you lose, you won't blame the heavens or accuse others. But someone used this to make a big deal out of it. They spread it in Warner Protoss, saying that Njord's descendants were even worse than Earthlings, and that 3 of them couldn't even defeat one. Coupled with the continuous defeats of Warner Protoss, Njord's reputation among the general public is getting lower and lower. In order to regain his reputation, Njord organized an army of 30,000 people and led them into battle personally. This reason sounded reasonable, but Rog still felt that this reason was a little too far-fetched. Would Njord, an old monster who had lived for God knows how many years, be so impatient? It was impossible that he didn't know what it meant for him to personally take action, but he still chose to do so. In order to regain his reputation, he didn't hesitate to draw out Odin. This didn't seem like something a king would do. Especially when his own strength was not as good as Odin's. Don't you feel that something is wrong? Rog asked in return. We also feel that something is very wrong, but that's all the information we have right now. And Njord really did take action. Thor naturally noticed this, but Njord's action made them have no time to think about other things. The most important question now was how to stop Njord. If they couldn't stop Njord, then everything they had done before would be meaningless. At this moment, the 3 warriors of Sengoku suddenly came into the tent and said to Thor, Njord is coming with the army. He will appear in front of the camp in at most an hour. All the Asari camps in Warnerheim had been recovered. If it wasn't for Njord's appearance, they would have considered returning to Asgard. Inform the entire army, we will continue to retreat. Thor sighed helplessly and gave the order to continue the retreat. This was not a good order for Asari, which valued martial arts. But under the current circumstances, this was their best choice. Without the top combat power to restrain Njord, it was meaningless no matter how many ordinary soldiers there were. Where is Njord's army now? Rog didn't look at Thor, but turned to Hogun and asked. North. I'll go buy some time for you. After saying that, Rog left the tent and looked to the north. The god of the ocean, Njord, the strongest of the Warner Protoss. Just the name alone was enough to make people eager to give it a try. Don't be rash. I've already sent someone to inform Father. We don't need to deal with Njord ourselves. Thor followed Rog out of the tent and said with a serious face. Just by looking at Rog's expression, he could tell what Rog was planning. As the only person present who had fought Njord, he knew how strong Njord was. Don't worry, I won't joke with my life. I may not be able to defeat Njord, but if I want to leave, he won't be able to stop me. As soon as he finished speaking, Rog's figure disappeared in front of Thor. He just mastered Sage Mode, and such a perfect opponent appeared. If he didn't seize this opportunity, Rog would despise himself. And as he said, even if he can't defeat Njord, he has absolute confidence to leave the battlefield. A ninja who mastered Thor is so confident. After running north for a while, he saw a mighty army of Warner Protoss, and Njord who was riding a mount he couldn't name. The moment he saw Njord, who was walking at the front of the army, also saw him. Although it was the first time he saw Rog, Njord recognized him at a glance. The man in red armor was the one who killed the 3 Storm brothers. Njord slightly raised the trident in his right hand, and the army of Warner Protoss behind him immediately stopped moving forward, and the whole army quietly stayed in place. Then, Njord slowly walked toward Rog on his cheetah-like mount. When Njord walked toward him, Rog also summoned the Kusanagi sword and the Thunder Fan, and then put these 2 weapons on his body. After arriving in front of Rog, Njord looked at him condescendingly, and then pointed the trident in his hand at him. You are the Earthling Rog? Njord deliberately asked in a very oppressive tone. No. I am, Sage Rog. Roger put his palms together, and a red arc of eyeshadow appeared in his eyes. A red circular pattern also appeared on his forehead. Chapter 117. The moment he put his hands together, the chakra in Rog's body turned into chakra. Unlike Mount Mayaboku's Sage Mode, Shikatsu Forest's Sage Mode doesn't need to absorb chakra in a static state, and it doesn't need to transform into chakra in advance. As long as the ability to sense and absorb chakra is strong enough, Shikatsu Forest's Sage Mode can be activated instantly. With the red lines and eyeshadow appearing in his eyes, Rog can directly see the chakra around him, and his body can't help but absorb chakra. Although the god of the ocean, Nold, didn't know what Rog had done, the moment Rog entered Sage Mode, he thrust his trident at Rog like a bolt of lightning. Njord's attack wasn't slow, but Rog's speed was faster. After entering Sage Mode, Rog's strength, speed, and physique have undergone a qualitative change. Especially the vitality of his body, it has increased to a terrifying level. Handprint healing. In Sage Mode, Rog is the same as Hashirama, he can automatically recover when he is injured. In other words, in Sage Mode, not only can he fight, but he can also take a beating. When the flashing trident was about to reach him, Rog used the body flicker technique and disappeared in an instant. However, he didn't retreat, instead, he used the body flicker technique's explosive power to jump high. Sage Mode, Odama Rasengan. The Odama Rasengan with a diameter of 1 meter instantly appeared in his right hand, and then he fiercely attacked Njord on his mount. As the strongest of the Warner Protoss, Njord naturally won't be hit so easily. He suddenly raised his right hand holding the trident, and the tip of the trident pierced the Odama Rasengan in Rog's hand. Boom! An energy storm mixed with Senjutsu chakra and storm force erupted with a loud bang. The shock wave generated by the explosion swept out in all directions at a speed faster than the speed of sound, and spiderweb-like cracks appeared on the ground within a few hundred meters. The shock wave of the explosion lifted Rog in the air, and Njord's mount directly knelt on the ground and let out a painful howl. Rog hasn't landed yet, but his attack was once again in front of Njord. Flying Thor Kunai. Dang! Njord waved his trident, and the flying Thor Kunai was blocked and bounced to the ground. Rog did not expect the flying thunder god Kunai to hit Nold in the first place. All he wanted was a set of coordinates that he could teleport to. When the flying thunder god Kunai stabbed into the ground, he disappeared from the sky again. Immortal method, lightning release, Chidori blade. Relying on the flying Thor, he instantly flashed to Njord's right side, and the Kusanagi sword wrapped in lightning drew a beautiful arc. Njord didn't expect that Rog, who was blown away by the explosion, could actually come to his side in an instant. He didn't expect that Rog's sword would have such a terrifying speed. Now, there were only two paths in front of him. Either he continued to sit on his mount and use his body to resist the sword, or he abandoned his mount and took the initiative to avoid the sword. In the blink of an eye, Nold made his decision. His body slightly leaned to the left, and then he turned around and instantly left his mount. Njord avoided Rog's lightning-like sword, but his mount wasn't so lucky. The Kusanagi sword directly cut through the mount's neck, directly ending the life of the mount. After the lightning killed Njord's mount, Rog didn't have time to withdraw his sword. Njord's attack arrived in front of him. It was a purple lightning ball with a diameter of 2 meters, flying straight toward him with the momentum to overturn mountains and seas. Even if he had the Sage body and entered the Sage mode, Rog absolutely couldn't resist the damage of this ball of lightning. However, he didn't need to use his body to resist this ball of lightning. When this powerful ball of lightning was only 2 or 3 meters away from him, a huge palm of 3 or 4 meters in size emerged from the ground and directly grabbed the ball of lightning. Immortal method, wood release, wood puppet technique. I often say that in the past, Hashirama used the wood puppet to catch the Kyuubi's Baijidama with his bare hands. Today, I, Rog, used the wood puppet to catch the sea god Njord's ball of lightning, no problem. When the huge palm caught the ball of lightning, wood puppet Arhat, whose height soared to more than 40 meters, climbed out of the ground. Although Wood Arhat's appearance didn't seem too oppressive, at this time, seeing Wood Arhat catch the ball of lightning with his bare hands, the Warner Protoss soldiers couldn't help but have the feeling that Wood Arhat was an abyss demon. Holding a ball of lightning that constantly released strong electric current in his right hand, and a wooden dragon with a long hooked nose wrapped around his body, Wood Arhat appeared directly in front of everyone. Here you go. Under Rog's control, Wood Arhat's right hand was like a meteorite falling from the sky towards Njord. At this time, Njord finally understood why the 3 Storm brothers who had awakened the power of the storm lost to Rog in the Battle of Champions. This earthling can't be allowed to live. Although Njord's height was less than 2 meters, he didn't have any intention of dodging or retreating. Instead, he directly raised his trident and stabbed towards Wood Arhat's right hand. In terms of size, Njord's action was like a mouse roaring at a lion. But as the strongest of Warner Protoss, Njord obviously wouldn't do such a meaningless action. Boom! When Wood Arhat's right fist that was holding the ball of lightning collided with Njord's trident, an even stronger energy storm than before erupted. The shockwave from the explosion even directly swept through the Warner Protoss soldiers 1 kilometer away, causing the originally neat and orderly formation of the Warner Protoss to suddenly become a mess. The trident in Nold's hand collided with the wooden Arhat's right fist, which was several times larger than himself. The trident that was about the size of a toothpick in front of Wood Arhat not only blocked Wood Arhat's right fist, it also didn't bend at all. This kind of unscathed state was no longer something that could be explained by the strength of the trident itself. Before Wood Arhat could retract his right fist, the trident in Njord's hand shone with an ocean-like blue light. Then, an indescribably shocking scene appeared in front of Rog. On this plain far away from the ocean, a 40 to 50 meters tall and several hundred meters long wave appeared out of thin air in front of him. It was like a natural moat formed by the waves, towering in front of him. Ocean god Njord was starting to get serious. Chapter 118. Is this the power of the god of the ocean? To be able to create waves of this magnitude on a plain without water, no wonder he's the god of the ocean. Looking up at the wave that was taller than Arhat, Rog not only didn't have any fear, but became even more excited. An opponent of this level is worth going all out. Under Rog's control, Arhat opened his arms and roared at the huge wave like a beast. In front of Arhat, the god of the ocean, Njord, was like a mouse in front of a lion. And in front of this wave, the wooden Arhat was like a pet dog in front of a wild wolf. Sometimes, the ups and downs of life came so quickly. At this time, the Warner Protoss soldiers in the distance didn't know how to describe the battle between Njord and Rog. Their only thought now was to retreat as soon as possible, as far away as possible, so as not to be affected by the terrifying battle between these two. Dying on the battlefield was the glory of a soldier. But if he died in the process of being a spectator, it would be a blatant irony. Under the command of the other generals, the disrupted formation of the Warner Protoss soldiers began to quickly retreat. At the same time, on the other side of the plain, Thor and the three warriors of Sengoku were also shocked. They knew that Njord was very strong, the strongest of the Warner Protoss. But they didn't expect that Njord could use divine power to directly create a vision of heaven and earth that went against the laws of nature. And what surprised them even more was that Rog, who had been missing for half a year, could actually fight Njord back and forth. Moreover, judging from the few exchanges just now, he had a slight upper hand. He has a power similar to divine power, but I've never seen this type of power. As the only one present who had awakened divine power, Thor was the only one who could detect the natural energy in Rog's body. Divine power? Earthlings can also awaken divine power? Sif wasn't suspecting Thor, but it sounded a little unbelievable. It's not the kind of divine power that we understand. It's just somewhat similar to divine power. It can borrow natural energy. Rog immediately noticed Thor's arrival, even though he didn't pay attention to Thor's situation. After entering Sage mode, his perception ability had been significantly improved, especially in the area of natural energy perception, which had an unparalleled improvement. Thor, who had awakened the power of thunder, was like a walking human-shaped lightning bolt. Moreover, it was the kind that kept releasing electricity. Therefore, as soon as Thor appeared, he would be able to sense Thor's arrival. But now, he didn't pay attention to Thor because he still had a troublesome wave to deal with. Under Njord's control, the tens of meters high wave rushed towards Arhat like a ferocious beast. It had the momentum of completely destroying Arhat. At the moment when the wave hit, Rog also used a ninjutsu that he had never used in actual combat. Sage mode, would release, world of trees descending. At the moment when the wave was about to hit Arhat, the whole earth began to tremble violently, and huge trees directly rushed out from the ground. In an instant, a forest with a radius of several kilometers appeared on the plain, completely changing the terrain of the plain. You have waves, I have forests. Don't underestimate Sage mode. The huge wave carried an aura that could destroy everything as it slammed into the wooden Arhat, slamming into the forest that had sprouted from the ground. At the moment when the wave hit the forest, the earth seemed to howl, and the dull and heavy sound of the wave resounded throughout the world. The waves flowed through the forest like a flood, destroying a large number of trees. An obvious gap appeared in the originally dense forest. When the seawater dissipated, the forest was still standing on the ground, and Arhat was still standing. Now, it's my turn. Rog didn't give Njord a chance to launch another attack. Arhat's fists were like Gatling guns as they bombarded Njord. The Gatling Bodhisattva of Namo had saved the world with great compassion. 3,600 revolutions in a single breath. Physics is converted to Buddha. Eula 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 Eula. The last time this happened was when the destroyer was made of URU metal. Njord was not the destroyer, but the wooden Arhat was not the wooden Arhat of the past. Right now, the wooden Arhat was burning the immortal technique chakra. Just as Arhat's physical fist was about to hit Njord, a spherical barrier made of light blue light appeared in front of him, completely blocking Arhat's fists that could destroy rock and steel. Although the spherical barrier was only a few centimeters thick, it was like an absolute domain, blocking all of the wooden Arhat's attacks. The dull sound of the attack was like the sound of war drums, reaching everyone's ears. While the light blue barrier blocked Arhat's attack, Njord once again raised the trident in his hand. The cloudless sky was suddenly shrouded in dark thunderclouds. Along with the appearance of the thunderclouds, there was also a downpour of rain, a whistling hurricane, and a rapidly rising sea level. Waves, lightning, torrential rain, hurricanes, this was the full power of Njord's ocean godly power. The warriors of the Warner God clan, who had already retreated several kilometers, after seeing this apocalyptic phenomenon, did not need anyone to order them to quickly retreat again. Should we go up and help? Sif came to Thor's side and asked. No need. Without awakened godly power, we can't get involved in their battle. Thor was currently the only person qualified to get involved in the battle, but he had no intention of getting involved. Although he didn't know what Rog was thinking, he was certain that Rog was enjoying the battle. Relying on his ocean godly power, Njord directly changed the weather within a dozen kilometers, creating his own domain. You used the forest to change the terrain of the plains, then I'll turn the entire plains into an ocean. Wrath of the god of the sea, the sky and earth change color. Under the protection of the spherical barrier, Njord began to slowly rise into the air, and finally floated in the thunderclouds like a light blue sun. Bolt after bolt of lightning struck the forest, and the rapidly rising seawater flooded the entire plains. Dozens of hurricanes formed a storm cage, firmly trapping Rog in the forest. Looking at Njord in the thunderclouds, Rog somewhat helplessly sighed. Afraid that I won't be able to aim, so he purposely gave me a clear target? Surrounded by a forest of towering trees, under his feet was the 10-meter-tall wooden Arhat. Rog stood on the wooden Arhat's head, and had no intention of leaving. Since Njord purposely gave him such a clear target, it would be unreasonable not to hit him. Immortal spell, lightning escape, spiral electromagnetic gun. Chapter 119. With a thought, the light blue spiral electromagnetic gun with lightning wrapped around it appeared in Rog's right hand. Looking at the spiral electromagnetic gun in Rog's hand, the god of the ocean Njord snorted in disdain. You want to use this to defeat me? Aren't you looking down on me too much? Njord knew exactly what the spiral electromagnetic gun in Rog's hand was, and he also knew that Rog used this move to defeat Victigny and her sister. But he still didn't think that the spiral electromagnetic gun could hurt him. He was the god of the ocean, the strongest of the Warner Protoss. The spiral electromagnetic gun could defeat Victigny and her sister, but it could never defeat him. This was the confidence of the god of the ocean. Glancing at Njord, who was high above, Rog slowly raised his right hand and aimed the spiral electromagnetic gun at Njord. From the outside, the spiral electromagnetic gun in his hand was no different from the last one. But in fact, the spiral electromagnetic gun this time was more than 10 times stronger than the last one. What was circulating inside the spiral electromagnetic gun was not chakra, but the immortal technique chakra. After aiming the spiral electromagnetic gun at Njord, Rog fired the spiral electromagnetic gun without any hesitation. The best way to deal with those arrogant guys was to give them a hard slap on the spot. In just a moment, the spiral electromagnetic gun wrapped in lightning arrived in front of Njord. Then, it slammed into the absolute barrier built by the god of the ocean. Boom! A strong explosion like the explosion of a neutron star rang out, and a strong and dazzling blue light instantly shrouded the entire sky. Pitch-black thunderclouds, violent lightning, raging tornadoes, the original apocalyptic scene was swept away by the terrifying shockwave generated by the explosion, and instantly returned to its original sunny appearance. One punch of wind and rain, no gods in the four seas. For some reason, this sentence suddenly flashed in Rog's mind. Before he could think about it, the shockwave generated by the explosion roared like a tsunami and slammed into Arhat the wood and the forest. The trees in the forest were uprooted, and even the amazingly large wood Arhat couldn't help but take a few steps back before he finally stabilized his body. The shockwave disappeared as quickly as it came. When everything returned to normal, the originally lush forest was already a mess. Rog, who was standing on top of Arhat the wood, ignored the situation in the forest and looked directly at Njord in the air. The absolute barrier formed by the god of the ocean still appeared in front of Njord. However, compared to the previous complete sphere, the current divine barrier was like a wall that had been blasted by a Gatling gun. There were holes everywhere, and it gave off a feeling that it would collapse and dissipate at any time. Behind the fragmented barrier was Njord, who was gasping for breath. Now, he was no longer as conceited as before, and the armor on his chest had completely caved in. The size of the dent was just a little smaller than the spiral electromagnetic gun. Never in his wildest dreams did Nold expect the helical railgun to be so powerful. At the moment when he was hit by the spiral electromagnetic gun, he felt as if he had been hit by Odin, who was holding Thor's hammer. If it wasn't for the god of the ocean dissipating part of the spiral electromagnetic gun's power, the attack just now would have left him with an unforgettable memory. At this time, the first thing that appeared in Njord's mind was not how Rog could make such a powerful attack, but which bastard had investigated. The attack's power was limited. Although it defeated Vigtigny and Weigelf, it did not cause serious damage, and did not have the power to directly kill. Njord really wanted to kill the intelligence officer who came up with this conclusion. Even the god of the ocean's divine power that he had created could not stop the spiral electromagnetic gun. This attack's power could not only seriously injure Vigtigny and Weigelf, but it could also instantly kill them. The last time he suffered an attack of this level was more than 1,000 years ago when he fought with Odin. It was also because of that defeat that Warner Protoss signed a peace agreement with Asari. Thinking of this, Njord seriously looked at Rog, who was on top of Arhat. This guy, could he be Odin's illegitimate son? The power of thunder was Odin's specialty. And the spiral electromagnetic gun just happened to contain the powerful power of thunder. Just as he was randomly guessing the relationship between Rog and Odin, he saw the familiar spiral electromagnetic gun in Rog's hand. Again? After seeing the spiral electromagnetic gun in Rog's hand again, Njord instantly became 120% alert. The god of the ocean's divine power once again appeared in front of him, and at the same time, he clenched the trident in his hand. Although the power of the spiral electromagnetic gun was far beyond his expectations, it was still enough to make him raise his hand and surrender. There was only one person who could make him put down his weapon and choose to surrender, and that was the father of gods, Odin. Rog raised his right hand again and aimed the spiral electromagnetic gun at Njord. After mastering Sage Mode, his sage body had also undergone an obvious evolution. Now, he could release the spiral electromagnetic gun 6 times in a row, and there would be no side effects. There was no enemy that could not be taken care of by the immortal spell, lightning evasion, spiral electromagnetic gun. If there was, then he would shoot again. Just as Rog was about to release the spiral electromagnetic gun, a cylindrical rainbow fell from the sky. It was the teleportation of the Bifrost. When the brilliant light of the Bifrost dissipated, Odin, who was riding an 8-legged horse, wearing armor and holding the Gungnir, appeared in front of Rog and Njord. The father of gods, Odin, had made his appearance. After seeing Odin appear, Rog took the initiative to deactivate the spiral electromagnetic gun in his hand, and at the same time, deactivated Sage Mode. Njord, are you going to violate the agreement between us? Odin's tone was very calm, and it felt like he was asking Njord if he had eaten breakfast. However, It was this sentence that made Njord, who was floating in the air, take the initiative to land in front of Odin and deactivate the divine power barrier in front of him. I have no intention of violating the peace agreement between us, but my descendant. Before Njord could finish his words, he saw Odin's extremely cold eyes, and then he silently swallowed the rest of his words. Looking at Odin, who was silent on the eight-legged horse, Njord did not say anything in the end and silently left. A few minutes later, the army of Warner Protoss began to retreat. Did the difference in treatment have to be so obvious? Something that he could not do even if he fought for his life, Odin did it with just one sentence. This was too much of a blow. Chapter 120. What was a big shot? As long as he appeared, no matter how complicated things were, they would become incomparably simple. When Odin personally came to Warnerheim, the chaotic Warnerheim immediately returned to its original order. Warner Protoss returned to its original territory without a word, and the peace agreement signed thousands of years ago came into effect again. Except for the soldiers who died in battle and the people who were displaced due to the war, everything returned to its original state. In less than 2 days, Asgard took care of all the things in Warnerheim, and the troops began to return to Asgard. Before returning to Asgard, Rog went to see Vigtigni again and returned Vigtigni's wrath of hurricane to her. Then, he left Warnerheim like a scumbag who didn't recognize anyone after pulling up his pants. After returning to Asgard through the Bifrost, Rog suddenly found that Asgard was obviously different from when he left. In other words, he finally felt the magic of Asgard. Natural energy, the natural energy was so rich that it was unreasonable. Even if he didn't enter Sage mode, he could clearly feel the excessive natural energy. Living in this environment, even an ordinary earthling could be strengthened to the point of superhuman. In the next few days, the whole of Asgard celebrated the victory of the troops who went out to battle. As for the soldiers who had contributed to the war effort, they had also received their due rewards. Except for Rog. Is this military merit list serious? Hogan and the others got a reward, but I didn't. Rog looked at the military merit list that had just been released in his hand and asked in confusion. To be precise, you're not the only one who didn't get a reward. Thor's name won't appear on it either. Sif casually explained. He is him, and I am me. He's the heir to the throne, and the whole of Asgard will be his in the future. But I'm not. Although he didn't fight for the military merit, Odin's way of doing things was still very disappointing. The reward wasn't important, but it was meaningless if he didn't even show some appreciation. By the way, His Majesty wants you to go see him after the banquet. Tonight? If Rog remembered correctly, Asgard's banquets usually lasted until the wee hours of the morning. Yes, tonight. After receiving Sif's confirmation, Rog suddenly had a bad feeling. Odin was so old, it shouldn't be. After the banquet ended, Rog was led by the royal guards to the highest observation platform of the Golden Palace. Apart from Odin, there was no one else on the huge platform. At this moment, Odin was clad in golden armor, and the tip of the Gungnir emitted strands of electricity from time to time. You're here. Odin was the first to speak. Yes, I'm here. Rog replied simply. Are you very curious why your name isn't on the list of military merit? Odin turned to look at Rog and said calmly. I'm not particularly curious. Since you've removed my name from the list of military merit, you must have your own considerations. As the king of Asgard, Odin obviously couldn't write the list of military merit himself. What he needed to do was to review the list of military merit submitted to him and determine the final reward. Rog was very sure that his name was definitely on the list of military merit, because he had taken a look at the list before submitting it. You're a smart young man, so I hope that our conversation will only be between the two of us. Apart from Rog and Odin, no one knew what they were talking about. The next morning, the royal guards handed over the thunderclap round fan and the 9 flying Thor kunai that Odin had personally enchanted to Rog. responding to summons and flying autonomously. This was a magical effect that Rog had specially requested, and Odin had fulfilled his small wish. With these two magical effects, the round fan and the flying Thor kunai could fly directly into his hands when he needed them, just like the Thor's hammer. After testing the effects of the round fan and the flying Thor kunai, Rog placed them back into the mediumship scroll with great satisfaction. Order had been restored in Warnerheim, and the Bifrost had been rebuilt. It was time to return to Earth. It had been more than 9 months since he left Earth. Although he spent most of his time in Warnerheim, he was quite satisfied with this trip. He increased the amount of chakra, mastered Sage Mode, and learned new ninjutsu. He also got hundreds of kilograms of URU metal. The round fan and the flying Thor kunai were also enchanted. In conclusion, the past 9 months had been quite meaningful. Okay, don't send me off. If there's a chance, I'll see you on Earth. After saying goodbye to Thor and the 3 warriors of Sengoku, Rog's figure directly disappeared in the brilliant light of the Bifrost. Because there was no specific request for the teleportation location, Heimdall directly set the teleportation location in the original city of Anticapuant. I'm finally back. Glancing at the blue sky, Rog sighed silently, and then began to perceive the flying Thor technique in New York. The next second, his figure completely disappeared. Rog did not directly return to the office, but directly teleported to his secret nest. But when he returned to this long-lost home, his face became a little ugly. After more than 9 months of vacancy, the originally clean house was covered with dust, and the turbid air irritated his nose all the time. Shadow Clone Technique. With a thought, a total of 30 shadow clones appeared in front of him. It was absolutely impossible to clean by himself, and it was not appropriate to contact a housekeeping company, so he immediately thought of the shadow clone technique. A shadow clone technique that only knows how to fight is definitely not a good shadow clone technique. After handing over the cleaning job to the shadow clone technique, Rog once again used the flying thunder god and teleported directly to the office. However, when he teleported back to his office, he saw a woman with dark brown curly hair who looked to be in her early 20s. Who are you? Rog and the young woman asked at the same time. You first. After hearing Rog's question, the young woman did not answer his question, but trotted out of the office. Within a few seconds, the woman returned to the office, and Rog's assistant, Erica, came back with her. Rog, you're back? After seeing Rog, a look of excitement appeared on Erica's face. But she quickly calmed down, and then said to Rog, her name is Sky, a hacker in the hacker organization Rising Tide. Chapter 121. Hacker Sky of the Rising Tide organization? Is she the future Shockwave woman, Daisy Johnson? After hearing Erica's introduction, Rog looked up and down at Sky while using chakra perception to sense her situation. There is no special energy except for the normal life energy reaction. Is it because she hasn't awakened as an inhuman yet? Although it was the first time Sky met Rog, she knew very well that the man in front of her was the real owner of the firm. The legendary private detective. After sensing Rog's look up and down, Sky involuntarily took a step back silently. Okay, I know, you can go out first. Rog said to Sky. When Sky left the office, Rog asked about what had happened in the past 9 months. In the next half an hour, Erica briefly introduced what had happened in the past and expressed the idea of letting Sky stay in the firm. In the past 9 months, nothing particularly sensational happened. The only thing worth paying attention to was that during the Stark Industrial Expo, Whip fought against Iron Man and was then defeated by Iron Man. In addition, Tawny participated in a hearing organized by the Senate Armed Services Committee and refused to hand over any technology for the Iron Man armor. Although Tawny still maintains his unruly playboy style, he has also become a well-known superhero and has even gained a lot of fans. Through Erica's introduction, Rog finally knew that Sky, the future Shockwave woman, would appear in his firm. After Tani publicly admitted that he was Iron Man, many people suspected that the government had concealed many important things. In this magical land, the right of citizens to know is a sacred right. At least that's what the people think. As a result, many hacker organizations began to investigate government agencies, trying to dig out substantial evidence that the government concealed from the people. And the Rising Tide organization is one of them. However, unlike other hacker organizations, the Rising Tide organization focused on the investigation of metahumans. After a careful investigation, the Rising Tide organization discovered the existence of S.H.I.E.L.D., and by the way, they also discovered Roger's small, inconspicuous firm. Although they have not investigated what kind of organization S.H.I.E.L.D. is, the existence of this secret organization is enough to prove something. As the top hacker of the Rising Tide organization, Sky was naturally the main force in the investigation. However, Sky had overestimated her ability to act. Her investigation had attracted the Punisher's attention. On a dark and windy night, Sky was gently invited to the office by the Punisher. In the past few years, there had been at least 80, if not 100, people like Sky, who worked in a covert investigation firm. This kind of thing could be easily solved, but after talking to Sky face to face, Erica kept Sky in the office. According to Erica, the firm needed a technical talent like Sky. And after knowing that Sky's ultimate goal was to find her parents, Erica's motherly love inexplicably overflowed. She didn't know if she was moved by Erica's concern or if she wanted to continue investigating something, but Sky happily accepted Erica's arrangement and became a new assistant in the law firm. When Sky stayed, Erica and the other two also quietly monitored her for a while. Except for the occasional hacking, Sky did not pose any threat to the firm, so the Punisher and the Abomination later agreed to Erica's approach. During Rog's absence from the Earth, the affairs of the firm were basically decided by the three of them voting and discussing, so Sky's stay can be regarded as a joint decision of the three of them. Okay, I see, by the way, sort out the previous commissions and give them to me. It didn't take long for Erica to hand over a sorted commission document to Rog. Although he left the Earth, the work of the firm did not stop completely because of his departure. Erica is responsible for receiving commissions, and the Punisher and the Abomination are responsible for completing them. Of course, sometimes Erica herself will complete some commissions, but most of the commissions are completed by the Punisher and the Abomination. Also, unlike him who accepted random commissions, Erica and the others were obviously more focused when they accepted commissions. They were not as confusing as he was. After reading the commission document in his hand, Rog suddenly found that it doesn't seem to make much difference whether he's in the firm or not. Even if he's not there, the firm can still run well, and judging from the completion of these commissions recently, it's running quite well. In the next month or so, Rog resumed his commission career and successfully earned 40 ninja coins with the remaining 3 commission scrolls. Just when he thought that this kind of dull life would continue for several months, Coulson, who he hadn't seen for more than 10 months, suddenly came to the firm. Rog, we're in a bit of trouble now. After that, Coulson directly handed the strange-looking tablet in his hand to Rog. You need to look at this, look at it now. Coulson said to Rog with a serious face, with a serious look on his face that he had never seen before. Don't be so nervous, relax. Rog said to Coulson with a smile and turned on the tablet casually. Then, his face became extremely serious. There was only one surveillance video on the computer, and it was last night's surveillance video. In the video, there was an empty laboratory the size of a basketball court. In the middle of the laboratory, there was a complex instrument. A few seconds later, a blue light shot out from the center of the instrument. This blue light hit a mechanical platform more than 20 meters away, and then a spherical portal appeared on the platform. This spherical portal only lasted for a few seconds before it exploded, and the light blue energy blew around like a hurricane. When the energy storm dissipated, a man with a spear in his hand appeared on the platform. At first sight of this man, Rog recognized his identity. The god of trickery, Loki. When he first opened the surveillance video, Rog felt that the surveillance picture was a bit familiar. When Loki appeared, he was 100% sure that the laboratory in the surveillance was the laboratory where S.H.I.E.L.D. studied Space Gem. Loki, Space Gem, S.H.I.E.L.D., the wheel of fate turned forward again. Tell me, what do you want to commission? We hope you can find this person and give him to us, and you can pay him. Chapter 122. 500 million US. At this time, there is no need to be polite to S.H.I.E.L.D., they have money anyway. And compared with the Space Stone, 500 million US is nothing. No problem. Coulson has obviously been fully authorized by Nick Fury and agreed without thinking about it. As usual, write the commission content. Remember to send the reward in advance. After that, Rog handed an unused commission scroll to Coulson. Judging from the system's previous performance, the possibility of this commission passing the judgment is extremely high, and if nothing unexpected happens, the commission reward given will also be amazing. Although he was mentally prepared, Rog couldn't help but take a deep breath after seeing the commission information that appeared on the system commission page. Commission content: capture Loki and hand him over to S.H.I.E.L.D., commission status: incomplete, commission reward: 200 ninja coins. A full 200 ninja coins, the reward given by the system has once again refreshed the record, and it is double the previous record. The last time he captured Hulk, the system only gave a reward of 100 ninja coins. After seeing the commission reward this time, Rog felt that he suddenly liked Loki. Loki, you are really too good. What is prestige, what is status, this is it. You can take this kunai with you. When you are ready, just let me know. After taking the Flying Thor kunai from Rog, Coulson quickly left the office and began to go to Stark Building. At the same time, Black Widow Natasha also found Dr. Banner in Canada, who had become single again. At noon the next day, Rog received a call from Coulson. Before leaving New York, Rog also specifically told Erica and the other two to be ready to fight at any time. It's already in the Atlantic Ocean, how efficient. After sensing the Flying Thor technique of kunai, Rog did not hesitate and directly left the office with the Flying Thunder God. When his figure reappeared, he was on the deck of a busy aircraft carrier. Coulson had just disembarked from a Quinjet with a Thor. Beside him, there was a blond man with perfect proportions and an American-style perky butt. Next time, before you appear, can you give me a heads-up first? It's easy for you to agitate others by appearing and disappearing like a ghost. Although he had already experienced Rog's sudden appearance like a ghost, Coulson couldn't help but complain. Then, he introduced him to the vigilant Rog. This is Rog, a private detective, a very famous one. He is Captain America, Steve Rogers, the first superhero in American history. Coulson added silently, and when he introduced Rogers, his tone was obviously much more excited. It was normal for fans to be excited when they met their idol. Hello. Rog took the initiative to greet him and extended his right hand to Rog. Hello. This is the legendary Captain America. Rog also reached out his right hand and shook hands with Rogers. It felt good. Why did Fury ask you to come here? As soon as Rog shook hands with Rogers, Black Widow Natasha came over and asked in confusion. He's very willing to pay, and I happen to be interested in this commission. Rog answered casually. Pay? After hearing Rog's answer, Rogers froze for a moment. He received the information specially prepared by Nick Fury yesterday, but there was no record of Rog in the information. It wasn't until now that he understood why Coulson just said that Rog was a private detective. Is it really good to let a private detective participate in this kind of mission? Rogers didn't look down on private detectives, but as a soldier, he instinctively felt that private detectives were just civilians and not suitable for this kind of battle. Natasha didn't expect that Nick Fury would take the initiative to find Rog. However, after considering Rog's strength, she felt that Nick Fury's choice was quite wise. The bridge is looking for you. They have already started facial recognition tracking. Natasha didn't pay any more attention to this issue and turned to Coulson and said, "See you later." When Coulson left the deck, Rog and the others met Dr. Banner, who was a little restrained. Before Rog had time to say hello to Banner, Rogers took the initiative to greet him. "Hello, Dr. Banner." Rogers shook hands with Dr. Banner and then continued, "I heard that you can find the magic cube. Haven't you heard of anything else?" "I don't care about anything else." Rogers' answer made Dr. Banner a little more relaxed. Dr. Banner looked around and then said, "You must think all this is strange, right? To be honest, I have a feeling that I haven't felt in a long time." While Rog was talking to Dr. Banner, Natasha came to Rog's side and whispered, "Did Fury really just ask you to find the magic cube? Why do I feel like he might have used you as some kind of safety device? Strictly speaking, I'm not here to find the magic cube, I'm just here to capture Loki. As for the safety device, I don't think Fury needs an outsider like me as the final insurance." Rog knew exactly what Natasha meant by a safety device. Although Dr. Banner is now gentle, once he gets angry, he will be crazier than the craziest beast. "Let's go in quickly, we won't be able to breathe here soon." Natasha didn't continue to dwell on this issue and said directly to Rogers and Dr. Banner, who were not far away. As soon as Natasha finished speaking, the announcement that the deck was cleared sounded on the deck. "Is this a submarine? It can't be. Do you want me to stay in a sealed and pressurized metal tank underwater?" Both Rogers and Dr. Banner guessed something, but their imagination was still a little weak. When they came to the edge of the deck, they saw the turbo-type flight engine that was slowly rising. This is not an aircraft carrier, but a helicarrier. Led by Natasha, Rog and the others came to the bridge of the helicarrier and saw the busy SHIELD staff, as well as Nick Fury, who was wearing a black leather trench coat. "Sir, we have reached the predetermined altitude." "Very well, let's disappear." Nick Fury, who was standing in the commander-in-chief position, gave the order decisively. "Hello, everyone." Nick Fury turned around and greeted Roger and the others. At this time, Rogers of the American team silently took out $10 and handed it to him. Chapter 123. Seeing Rog handing $10 to Nick Fury, and Nick Fury was very happy to accept it, Rog suddenly thought of the $500 million that SHIELD had sent last night. This is called noble character, this is called selfless dedication. No wonder Rogers can have the title of Captain America, this title is simply tailor-made for him. Not only did he not charge a penny for carrying out such a dangerous task, but he also took the initiative to pay for it. This kind of character, this kind of style, it seems that he can only be a vulgar person in the future. "Thank you for coming." After putting away the $10, Nick Fury deliberately looked at Rog with his remaining right eye, as if to say, "Look at him and then look at him." Rog chose to ignore Nick Fury's suggestive eyes. Then, Nick Fury came to Dr. Banner and said slowly, "Doctor, thank you for coming. Thank you for not being rough." Dr. Banner answered calmly, and then continued, "How long do I have to stay here? We will let you go as soon as we get the magic cube, and you can go anywhere you want." "So, how are you doing now?" Dr. Banner continued to ask. If he could, he was not very willing to stay here. In particular, Rog was also here. "We are scanning all the wireless readable cameras, mobile phones, and laptops in the world. As long as they are connected to satellites, they are our eyes." Coulson answered the question for Nick Fury. "How many spectrometers can you mobilize if you want to narrow down the scope?" "As many as you want." Nick Fury said with great confidence. "Contact all the laboratories you can find and ask them to put the spectrometers on the roof and search for gamma rays." I will draft a tracking algorithm based on cluster recognition, so that at least a few areas can be ruled out. After entering his professional field, Dr. Banner immediately showed the qualities that his 7 doctorate degrees should have. What is professional? This is it. Can you find me a place to work? Dr. Banner continued. Agent Romanov, please take Dr. Banner to his laboratory. As a professional agent, Nick Fury naturally made all the necessary preparations and instructed Natasha. After Banner and Natasha left, Nick Fury came to Rog and said, "Are you really not considering joining the Avengers project? We need a professional like you. What you need is not a professional, but a professional fighter. It's better for us to maintain our current relationship. You'll pay, and I'll do my best. Money and goods are even, and I won't cheat anyone." Rog rejected Nick Fury's invitation once again. This was not the first time that Nick Fury had extended an invitation, but every time, he had received the same answer. "If I remember correctly, your last evaluation of me was that I was reckless, often ignored the rules, and lacked sympathy for the weak. It's not a good habit to overturn your previous evaluation for a mere $500 million. With the help of Dr. Banner, S.H.I.E.L.D's search work has improved significantly, but even so, they only found Loki's trace after nightfall. Suspected target found, facial features match 67%, weight, cross-comparison shows 79% match. A S.H.I.E.L.D. staff member reported. Where is he? Stuttgart, Germany, 28 Kuhnenstrasse. He didn't plan to hide. Loki, wearing a handsome suit, appeared on the surveillance screen. Captain, it's up to you. Nick Fury glanced at Rogers next to him and said with a serious face. At the same time, Rog in Natasha's room also received the order to set off. This Loki appeared at a really bad time. More than 10 minutes later, Rog and others appeared in a Quinjet that had already been prepared and began to head to Loki's location. Not long after the Quinjet set off, Rog, in uniform, came to Rog and sat next to him. Glancing at Natasha who was piloting the Quinjet, Rog turned to Rog and whispered, "I don't mean to offend you, but now is the time of action, and it's better to control some things. Wasting stamina is a big taboo on the battlefield. I can fight like this all day." Rog wanted to answer Rogers with this classic quote, but after seeing Rogers' serious expression, he dismissed the idea. The other party had good intentions. Although this did not affect him in any way, it was still a kind reminder from the other party. Proper relaxation is good for reducing the pressure before the battle. Just kidding, thank you for reminding me, I will pay attention next time. Then, it was a boring, long, and boring flight. At this time, Loki, wearing a horned helmet and holding a scepter, was expressing his feelings to the ordinary people kneeling in the square. You are born to be ruled by others, and you will always bow down to others. As soon as Loki finished speaking, an old man with very little hair stood up, "We will not bow down to people like you. You'll never find someone like me again," Loki said in a superior tone. Facing Loki, who showed superhuman strength, the old man was not afraid at all, and said firmly, "There are always lunatics like you. Everyone, look at this old man, I will use him as an example to others." After that, Loki pointed the scepter in his hand at the old man who stood up, and the tip of the scepter shone with a light blue light. Whoosh! The next second, a ball of energy flew toward the old man like a cannonball. Just as the energy ball was about to hit the old man, Rogers descended from the sky, blocked the energy ball with the shield in his hand, and bounced the energy ball back. Bang! Loki, who was caught off guard, was knocked to the ground by the energy ball he fired. You know, the last time I came to Germany, I also met a person who stepped on others. After blocking the energy cannonball, Rogers of the American team walked towards Loki, who was lying on the ground. Where did these people learn the habit of chatting before fighting? Isn't it better to just fight? Loki, who was knocked down, stood up immediately. Just as he was about to say a few harsh words to Rogers, he saw a person who was falling rapidly, a somewhat familiar person. Is it Rog? Why is he here? Isn't he at Asgard? Has the Bifrost been repaired? In an instant, several questions appeared in Loki's mind at the same time. Before he could think of any results, he saw a flying Thor kunai shining with a light silver metallic light in front of him. Chapter 124. Although Loki is not a professional melee player, it doesn't mean that he is not good at dodging. Not to mention the flying Thor kunai thrown by Rog, even if it's an arrow shot by Hawkeye, he can easily catch it. But now, he obviously doesn't have the idea of catching the kunai with his bare hands. Rog is very dangerous, and the weapon he throws is also very dangerous. With this in mind, Loki slightly tilted his head and avoided the flying Thor kunai that flew directly toward his handsome face. That's it? After avoiding the attack of the flying Thor kunai, Loki's face showed a look of disdain. However, in the next second, his disdain turned into shock. Rog, who was still falling rapidly in the air, instantly flashed in front of him, and his left hand grabbed the flying Thor kunai that just flew over his head. In Rog's right hand, there is a palm-sized light blue ball. Rasengan. Rog didn't give Loki any time to react, the Rasengan in his right hand directly pressed on Loki's chest. Boom! At the moment of contact with the Rasengan, Loki felt a strong twisting and tearing force. Then, his whole body was sent flying, and he crashed heavily into the house behind him. Leave him to me, I have a personal friendship with his brother, you are responsible for evacuating the crowd. Rog said to Rogers without looking back, but he soon found that his words just now were a little superfluous. The onlookers kneeling in the square didn't need anyone to remind them. After seeing Loki flying out, they scattered like a nest of frightened mice. How did you do that just now? Rogers of the American team came to Rogers' side with his shield and asked in confusion. You can simply understand that these are my superpowers. Rog didn't intend to explain to Rogers what ninjutsu is, this kind of thing will only be more complicated. Just as Rogers was about to continue to ask something, Loki, who was hit, came out of the broken wall. Although the power of the Rasengan is not bad, it depends on who it hits. For Loki, a frost giant, although the Rasengan hurts a little, it's not enough to knock him down with one blow. At this time, Loki has completely lost his previous arrogance and disdain. The appearance of Rog can be said to have completely disrupted his plan. Rog's appearance means that Bifrost is repaired, and Bifrost's repair means that Thor will come at any time. Should I change the plan? Just as Loki was considering whether or not to change himself, Rog once again appeared in front of him. Body flicker technique. The flying Thor kunai in Rog's hand pierced Loki's heart like lightning, and then it directly passed through Loki's body. Illusion. The reappeared Loki was just an illusion. As a sorcerer, heezes. TSS, heezes, TSST. 3 Tomo Sharingan, open. In an instant, Rog's eyes turned blood red, and then he quickly glanced around. Streets, squares, roofs. After a quick observation of the surrounding environment, Rog did not find any trace of Loki. Since he can't see him with his eyes, he'll use another way. Chakra perception. Loki can use magic to change his figure and create illusions to mislead the enemy, but his life strength and energy intensity are not so easy to change. Especially in a place like the Earth, his frost giant's life strength is as obvious as the moon in the night sky. He's running really fast. At this time, Loki had run out of several streets, decisively like an Olympic athlete in a 100-meter sprint. However, Loki didn't expect that at this time, a man in a red Iron Man armor would fly towards him, and without thinking, he gave him 2 energy cannons. Boom! Loki, who was running wildly, was hit by Iron Man Tani's 2 arc pulse cannons and he flew out in an extremely embarrassing manner. Make a move, Bambi. Loki, who was hit, just sat up and Iron Man Tani opened all the weapons on his armor and pointed them at him. Under Tani's naked threat, Loki decisively lifted the magic on his body, the armor on his body and the horned helmet on his head quickly disappeared, and then he silently raised his hands. That's a good boy. Tani put away his weapon, and Rog and Rogers also rushed over at this time. The next thing was much simpler. When Tani and Rog escorted Loki to the Quinjet, Rog picked up the scepter that fell aside. Is this the scepter that hides the Mind Gem? Mind Gem, the embodiment of the universal consciousness, can dominate the mind of all creatures, can read, modify, manipulate, and create the spirit of life. Even with a light touch, it can change the mind of the target. Even Rog, who has seen a lot, couldn't help but get a little excited at this time. However, when he picked up Loki's scepter and seriously perceived the blue gem at the top of the scepter, his face became extremely ugly. There is a ghost mind gem in it. Inside the blue gem at the top of the scepter, there is nothing but a huge amount of energy of unknown origin. Is there really no mind gem? Or is this scepter just a forgery? If the scepter is a forgery, it will be a little better, as long as the genuine one is found. If this scepter is genuine, then the problem is very serious. This means that in the future, he will no longer be the one he knows, and he will lose an extremely powerful invisible golden finger. After a helpless sigh, Rog boarded the Quinjet with the scepter that he didn't know if it was genuine or not. Did he speak? After knowing that Loki was successfully arrested, Nick immediately asked Natasha, who was piloting the Quinjet. He didn't say a word. Bring him back, we don't have much time. Nick Fury decisively ended the call. Rog and Tani of the American team said, I have a bad feeling. Why, isn't it good for a rock star to surrender? Tani replied with an indifferent face. Rog, what do you think? Rog ignored Tani and asked Rog's opinion. At this time, Rog didn't care why Loki surrendered. He just wanted to know if this scepter is genuine. It's okay, nothing special. Rog's answer was equally casual. With his skill, he shouldn't surrender so easily. Looking at the indifferent expressions of his two teammates, Rog's face became a little ugly. Just as Rog was about to say something, a few violent lightning flashed in the night sky. Loki, who didn't say a word, involuntarily turned his head and looked outside. Chapter 125. Loki's action immediately attracted the attention of Rogers from the American team. What's the matter, are you afraid of thunder? I don't like guys who follow lightning. Loki ignored Rogers' sarcasm and answered nervously. Thor really came. Although Loki had been mentally prepared when he saw Rog, he didn't know what to expect. But when Thor really appeared, he couldn't help but feel nervous. In just a few seconds, Saul, who was accompanied by lightning, landed directly on the Quinjet, causing the flying Quinjet to suddenly shake during the battle. A familiar guy is here. Unlike the nervous Loki and the confused Rogers and the others, Rog had a calm expression on his face at this time. When Rogers picked up his shield and Tani put on his helmet, Rog came directly in front of Loki and patted him on the shoulder. Thor's flying technique. Before the authenticity of the scepter was confirmed, he would never let Loki out of his sensing range. When Rog patted his shoulder, Loki felt a mysterious power that he had never touched before. Although this power was not considered strong, it was firmly branded on his body like gangrene attached to the bone. What is this? Just as Loki was about to speak, Tani, who had already put on his helmet, opened the hatch at the tail of the Quinjet. However, Tani had just taken a few steps when Thor in his armor came to the hatch and directly hammered Tani. Without any suspense, Tani was sent flying, and at the same time, he knocked down Rogers who was behind him. It was not until then that Thor realized that not only Loki was here, but Rog was also here. Long time no see. Rog took the initiative to greet him. Long time no see. Thor replied subconsciously, and then he remembered the real purpose of his trip. I still have some things to take care of. As soon as he finished speaking, Saul grabbed Loki and pinched his neck like he was pinching a cat's neck. Then, he waved Mjolnir and flew out. Another troublemaker. Tani, who stood up, complained silently. Is he also from Asgard? Natasha had never seen Thor before, nor had she seen any information about Thor. He is Loki's brother, Thor from Asgard. As the person who was most familiar with Thor, Rog took the initiative to introduce Thor. Then, is he on our side? Rogers of the American team immediately asked Roger. It doesn't matter, whether he releases Loki or kills him, we can't find the Tesseract. Before Rog could answer, Tani spoke first, and then walked in the direction of the cabin door. Stark, we need a battle plan. Rogers said quickly. I have a plan, and that is to attack. Tani turned his head and replied to Rogers, and then flew out directly. Watching Tony leave on his own, the captain of the American team, Rogers, was displeased. He picked up a parachute. Captain, don't get involved in this mess. They are all legends, almost equivalent to gods. Natasha, who was piloting the fighter, turned back and said to Captain America. Madam, there is only one God, and he will definitely not dress like that. After putting on the parachute, Rogers picked up his shield and jumped out of the fighter without looking back. Although in name, everyone is a member of the same team. But obviously, every member of this team has their own ideas and is very individualistic. Teamwork? Was that even edible? Aren't you going? In desperation, Natasha could only ask Rog, who was still in the fighter. Don't worry, Loki can't run away. Rog did not chase after Loki because the flying Thor technique on Loki is now in a state of rapid flight. When Loki lands or stops moving, he will naturally teleport over. Are you familiar with Thor? He seemed surprised when he saw you just now. After closing the door of the fighter, Natasha asked Rog again. I should be quite familiar with him, after all, I fought with him on an alien planet for 9 months. Hearing Rog's answer, Natasha's first reaction was that Rog was joking. But when she remembered that Rog had secretly disappeared for 9 months some time ago, she suddenly felt that what Rog said seemed to be true. Which planet? Why did you fight together? How did you get to that planet? After realizing that Rog was telling the truth, Natasha immediately asked. This is exclusive information, and it's first-hand exclusive information. As a professional agent, Natasha immediately realized the value of this information. I'll tell you next time. In Rog's perception, Loki had stopped flying and was staying on an unknown mountain top. Without any hesitation, Rog picked up Loki's scepter and directly left the fighter with the flying thunder god. At this time, Loki was sitting on a rock on the top of the mountain, looking at Thor and Tani fighting in the forest with a satisfied expression. However, in the next second, he saw the person he didn't want to see the most at this time. What's the matter with the scepter? After teleporting in front of Loki, Rog directly threw the scepter in his hand to Loki and asked with a serious expression. What do you mean, what's the matter? Loki casually took the scepter thrown by Rog and stood up with a puzzled expression. I'm not in the mood to joke with you right now. I'll ask again, what's the matter with the scepter? As soon as his voice fell, a ball of lightning visible to the naked eye appeared in Rog's right hand, and at the same time, there was the sound of 1,000 birds chirping. I really don't know what you're talking about. Loki still looked like he didn't understand anything. Asgard has already held a funeral for you, so I don't mind sending a dead person back to where he should be. As soon as his voice fell, Rog flashed in front of Loki and the Chidori in his right hand directly pierced Loki's heart. Wait! Just as the Chidori was about to pierce Loki's chest, Loki spoke again. Do you think this kind of low-level illusion can fool me? I'm the god of trickery, Loki. Playing illusion in front of me, aren't you too confident? As soon as Loki finished speaking, the Rog standing in front of him disappeared like a bubble, and 10 meters away, another Rog appeared. Ignorant earthling. Loki's face was full of disdain as he added. Well, since illusion can't scare you, let's do it for real. As soon as his voice fell, Rog used the summoning technique to summon the Kusanagi sword. As a show of respect, before you die, I'll tell you the name of this move in advance. This move is called Kusanagi sword, Chidori blade. In Warnerheim, I once used this move to kill a 5-meter-tall Kronen warrior. When Rog introduced the Chidori blade, Loki felt a strong murderous intent from him. This guy is serious. Farewell, Loki. Before Loki could speak, Rog once again appeared in front of him, and the Kusanagi sword wrapped in lightning directly pierced his throat. Chapter 126. The scepter was given to me by Thanos. Just as the Kusanagi sword was about to pierce Loki's throat, Loki spoke in an unprecedented speed. However, he was still too slow. The Kusanagi sword in Rog's hand did not slow down and directly pierced Loki's throat. Madman, this guy is a madman. Although his neck was pierced by the Kusanagi sword, Loki did not feel the slightest pain. He was fooled, the god of trickery was fooled by an earthling. Why didn't you say so earlier? Why did you have to do this? At this time, Rog was still holding the sword. After he finished this sentence, his body instantly collapsed and dissipated, turning into a dark crow. From the beginning to the end, he had no intention of killing Loki. Although Loki looked unloved in Asgard, if he really killed him, Odin, the father of all gods, would definitely kill Rog. You can. After calming down a little, Loki stared at Rog, who was more than 10 meters away, especially his blood-red eyes. As a master of illusion, he was actually fooled by an earthling's illusion. This was a shame that needed to be washed away with the enemy's life. After being teleported here through the Thor, Rog immediately cast an illusion on Loki. However, what he cast was not an ordinary illusion, but a double illusion. For someone like Loki who was proficient in magic, especially illusion magic, ordinary illusions would never be able to escape his eyes. Therefore, Rog deliberately gave Loki a small opportunity to show off and let him perceive the existence of the first illusion. As he had expected, Loki easily discovered the existence of the first illusion. However, Loki did not expect that the first illusion was only a part of the second illusion. Loki thought that he had seen through Rog's illusion, but in fact, he had always been under the influence of the second illusion. With Loki's strength, if he was just a little bit more cautious and serious, he would have a great chance of discovering the existence of a second illusion. Unfortunately, he was too confident. He was confident that he had seen through Rog's illusion. Loki thought that he was on the second floor and Rog was only on the first floor, but the real situation was that Loki was on the second floor and Rog was on the fifth floor. Thanos asked you to conquer the earth, but as a result, he is not even willing to give you a better weapon. It seems that you are not very important in his heart. Although Loki's scepter was a good magic weapon, it could only be considered good. Not to mention the hammer of Thor, even Rog's enchanted fan that had been enchanted by Odin was several levels higher than this thing. At the very least, his round fan could still respond to its owner's summons and had the ability to fly. You know. What do you know? Thanos doesn't want the Earth, but, speaking of this, Loki finally reacted. Why do I have to explain to him? He is not my companion. Not knowing if it was because of shyness or other reasons, Loki snorted proudly and then ignored Rog. At this time, Tawny and Thor were still fighting in the forest below, but they soon ushered in another game partner. Rogers of the American team finally rushed over and attacked Tawny and Thor with the shield in his hand at the same time. The appearance of Rogers made the battle between Tani and Thor temporarily stop. Then not long after, Thor waved Thor's hammer and smashed it on Rogers' shield. Boom! A dazzling and powerful explosion sounded, and the surrounding trees were instantly broken, and a very obvious circular gap appeared in the forest. After the explosion, Thor, Rogers, and others finally calmed down and put an end to this meaningless battle. More than half an hour later, the group returned to the helicarrier, and Loki was escorted by a team of heavily armed shield soldiers to his VIP presidential suite. As he passed by Dr. Banner's laboratory, Loki turned to look at Dr. Banner and showed an ambiguous smile. Let's be clear, if you try to escape, even if you just scratch the glass, you will fall to a height of 9,000 meters with this cage, understand? Nick Fury demonstrated his VIP exclusive service to Loki. This cage is really good, I guess it wasn't made for me? Even at a time like this, Loki still looked indifferent. It was built for something more powerful than you. Nick Fury answered Loki's question. I've heard of it. After that, Loki turned his head and glanced at the surveillance camera next to him. It's obviously a stupid beast, but you still pretend to be an ordinary person. How panicked are you to think of such a monster as a rescue? Loki's ridicule was clearly transmitted to a conference room in the helicarrier. Nick Fury is not the only one who is paying attention to Loki. Panicked? You threatened me by saying that you would go to war with my world. You stole the power that you couldn't control. You took pleasure in killing. It was you who forced me to do this. Nick Fury didn't take Loki's ridicule to heart and said righteously. If you don't know his identity, you will definitely think that he is a good person after hearing his words. Although Rog is also in the conference room, his attention is not on the conversation between Nick Fury and Loki, but looking at the system's commission page with a puzzled face. Commission content: capture Loki and hand him over to S.H.I.E.L.D., commission status, incomplete, commission reward, 200 ninja coins. Loki has been successfully captured and handed over to S.H.I.E.L.D., but the system still hasn't judged that the commission has been completed. The 3 words, incomplete, are still so dazzling. Judging from the content of the commission, it is definitely in the state of being completed. But the problem is that the system doesn't seem to recognize this. What the hell is going on here? Rog read the commission content over and over several times, but he still has no clue. Just as he was thinking about whether there would be any hidden conditions in this commission, Captain Rogers suddenly asked Thor, Loki is stalling for time. Thor, what is he planning? He has an army of Chitauri, and no one knows his origin. He intends to lead this army to invade the Earth. The Chitauri will help Loki conquer the Earth, and in return, Loki will give them the magic cube. Saul told him everything he knew about the current situation. An army, or an army from outer space? Roger's tone became serious. However, when she heard the word outer space, Natasha, who was sitting opposite Rog, silently looked back at Rog. Chapter 127. Why are you looking at me? I don't know anything about Chitauri. Because of Natasha's turn back, Rogers, Dr. Banner, and others also turned to look at her. If Loki has an army from outer space, then he also needs a stable space portal. That's why he kidnapped Dr. Selvig. Since meeting Rog on the helicarrier, Dr. Banner has deliberately avoided dealing with Rog, so he pulled the topic back to the main topic. Selvig? Thor suddenly asked. He's a Ph.D. in astrophysics. Dr. Banner explained. He's my friend. I don't know what method Loki used to control him, and one of our agents. Natasha added in her mind. I want to know why Loki surrendered so easily. He can't command the army if he's locked up here. Rogers always felt that something was wrong with Loki's choice to surrender so easily. On the Quinjet, he asked Rog and Tani about it, but they obviously didn't care about it. I don't think we should focus on Loki. This guy is a madman. You can see it at a glance. Dr. Banner expressed his opinion. Until now, he felt that Loki's meaningful smile was a bit scary. Pay attention to what you say. No matter how rude and unreasonable Loki is, he is still Asgard. He is my brother. After hearing Dr. Banner's evaluation of Loki, Thor couldn't help but defend Loki. He killed 80 people in 2 days. Natasha added silently again. He was adopted. Thor immediately explained. Rog did not participate in the discussion between them. His mind was now full of why the commission was not completed and why there was no Mind Stone in the scepter given by Thanos. How about throwing Loki out and then catching him back? A crazy idea began to take shape in his mind. Just as he was considering the feasibility of this plan, Tawny and Coulson came to the bridge and said to Dr. Banner at the same time, Iridium can be used as a stabilizer to prevent the portal from collapsing on itself, just like S.H.I.E.L.D's previous one. Big guy, don't hold a grudge. Your 2 hammers are very powerful. When he passed by Thor, Tawny patted Thor's muscular shoulder and continued to walk towards the Commander-in-Chief's position on the bridge. Iridium allows Loki to expand the portal as he pleases and maintain it for a very long time. Tawny spoke as he walked, and soon arrived at Nick Fury's commanding position. He then continued, raise the mizzen mast and turn the topsail. When the staff on the bridge turned to look at Tawny, he suddenly pointed at one of them and said, that person is playing with a bee. He thinks that others can't see it, but I can see it. Tawny's jesting instantly swept away the depressing atmosphere in the bridge. How can Fury see the screens on both sides? Tawny tried to block his left eye with his hand and then asked Agent Hill behind him. Turn around. Agent Barton can easily get other raw materials. He only lacks one main component, which is energy. Some kind of high-density energy is used to activate the magic cube. After a few random clicks on the screen, Tawny said casually, and then when he turned around, he installed a small device that looked like a nut on the pillar under the screen. When did you study thermonuclear astrophysics so much? Agent Hill asked. After hearing Agent Hill's words, Rog sighed helplessly. You shouldn't have asked this question. It will make everyone present look like they haven't graduated from elementary school. Last night. The dataset, Dr. Segwill's notes, and some papers on extraction theory, didn't you do your homework in advance? Thor said in a slightly exaggerated tone. Does Loki need any specific energy? Roger ignored Tawny's exaggerated expression and asked silently. He has to heat the magic cube to more than 100 million degrees to surpass the Coulomb barrier. Dr. Banner answered immediately. Unless Sylvig has already figured out a way to stabilize the quantum tunneling effect. Tawny added while walking towards Dr. Banner. If he really figures it out, he can use any reactor to complete heavy ion beam fusion. Dr. Banner continued. Finally, there is someone who can speak. What do you mean by that? Roger complained. Compared with Tawny and Dr. Banner, everyone present is an elementary school student who hasn't graduated yet. It's nice to meet you, Dr. Banner. Your research in the field of anti-electron collision is really unparalleled, and I think it's great that you turned into Hulk when you lost control. Dr. Banner was quite happy with the first half of Tawny's sentence, but the second half, you flatter me. Dr. Banner replied with a little helplessness. Dr. Banner's purpose this time is only to track the magic cube. I hope you can find it with him. Nick Fury returned to the bridge and interrupted Tawny's crazy idea in time. When Tawny and Dr. Banner went to the laboratory, Thor came to Rog and asked Rog, "Why are you here?" "I received a commission from someone else, so I came." Rog replied casually. Loki may have done something wrong, but no matter what, he's still an Asgardian. He's still my brother, so I hope you can help me bring him back. The purpose of Thor's trip is to retrieve the magic cube and bring Loki back to Asgard, but if Rog stops him then he feels that it will be difficult for him to take Loki away. So he needs to confirm Rog's attitude in advance. lest things go in the worst direction. No problem. But only after I complete the commission, and I happen to have something I need your help with. The commission Rog said is, of course, not the commission of S.H.I.E.L.D. If it was the commission of S.H.I.E.L.D., it would have been completed from the moment Loki boarded the helicarrier. What he is talking about now is the commission of the system. He will not let anyone take Loki away until the status of the system's commission becomes completed. That's 200 ninja coins. And he has never had the habit of giving up commissions. What's the matter? As long as Rog doesn't stop him from taking Loki away, everything else is fine. It doesn't matter if it's earlier or later. I want to know the whereabouts of the Spirit Stone. As soon as Rog finished speaking, Thor's face became a little ugly. Thor knows exactly what the Spirit Stone is, but he didn't expect that Rog would want to know the whereabouts of the Spirit Stone. And with his understanding of Rog, if Rog wants to know the whereabouts of something, it often means that he is determined to get that thing. Chapter 128. You want to find the mind gem? This is not a power that can be controlled by humans, it will only bring disaster. Thor felt that it was necessary to stop Rog's dangerous idea. That is one of the 6 Infinity Stones, one of the most dangerous forces in the universe. I just want to know the whereabouts of the mind gem now. I am not arrogant enough to control the mind gem. Rog knew exactly what Thor was worried about, but his worries now were obviously superfluous. I can try my best to help you inquire about it, but don't get your hopes up. Although he didn't know what Rog wanted to do, Thor finally agreed out of trust in Rog. After reaching a consensus with Thor, Rog left the bridge and returned to the room arranged for him by Nick Fury. The only thing he was good at was fighting, and as for those professional things, he would leave it to the professionals. Tawny and Banner were trying to determine the whereabouts of the magic cube. Natasha went to Loki's VIP presidential suite to see if she could get any useful information from him. As for Rog, he was now looking for something in the secret warehouse in the mothership. Thor was as idle as Rog, but one of them chose to go back to his room to sleep, while the other stayed in the bridge. However, not long after he lay down, he felt an abnormal energy fluctuation. To be precise, it was a magic fluctuation. Is this serious? The mind gem is gone. Can this scepter still have the effect of bewitching the mind? After sensing this sudden energy fluctuation, Rog could only end his rest time helplessly and walked towards Dr. Banner's laboratory. When he came to the laboratory, he saw Tawny and others arguing, and Dr. Banner, who had unknowingly picked up the scepter. Looking at the noisy Tawny and others, Rog frowned slightly, and then mobilized chakra in his body. Although he didn't know how the scepter bewitched Tawny and others, he had a very simple and crude way to crack it. Everyone, calm down. When Tawny and others all looked at him, Rog's eyes instantly turned into 3 Tomo Sharingan. Sharingan, Genjutsu. The moment they saw Rog's eyes, Tawny and others were pulled into an illusion by Rog. But he didn't do anything to them, and a few seconds later, he took the initiative to lift the illusion. When the effect of Genjutsu disappeared, Tawny and others also recovered their original reason and realized that something was wrong with them. Try to stay away from that scepter. Rog reminded them. At this moment, the monitoring device in the corner of the laboratory suddenly emitted a burst of urgent alarm. The energy signal match is 100%. Looking at the alert information and location displayed on the screen, Dr. Banner subconsciously took off his glasses. Boom! A strong explosion sounded, and the entire helicarrier shook violently. Although this sudden explosion didn't directly blow up the flight engine of the helicarrier, it also successfully stopped the helicarrier's engine 3. Not only that, because the laboratory is very close to the engine 3, the explosion unsurprisingly affected the laboratory and blasted a big hole in the laboratory floor. Tawny, Rog, and Thor were blown out by the explosion, while Banner, Natasha, and others fell directly to the next floor of the laboratory. This explosion really came at the right time. At the moment when the explosion sounded, Rog covered himself with a layer of chakra, so he didn't suffer any damage at this time. "Are you okay?" After lifting the metal pipes and iron pieces that pressed on Natasha and Dr. Banner, Rog asked about their condition. "I'm fine." Although she looked a little embarrassed, Natasha didn't suffer any obvious damage, she was just pressed down by those metal pipes. Compared to Natasha, Dr. Banner was a lot unluckier. Not only did he suffer more damage, but what's more troublesome is that he can't control his emotions now. "You leave here first, I'll take care of Banner." Dr. Banner's skin began to rapidly turn green, his body size skyrocketed, and the clothes on his body were directly stretched into rags by his skyrocketing body. Looking at Dr. Banner, who was transforming, Natasha didn't hesitate and immediately left. Rog didn't stop Banner's transformation, and for him, even if Banner transformed into Hulk, the result wouldn't change at all. Ouch! After a painful howl, Dr. Banner disappeared completely and was replaced by the muscular and strong Hulk. "I didn't expect us to meet again in this situation." Rog silently looked at Hulk, who had completely lost his mind in front of him, and sighed helplessly. If he could, he would like to meet the Hulk who could communicate with him. When Rog looked at Hulk, Hulk also noticed the little guy in front of him. Although Hulk has completely lost his mind now, when he saw Rog, he seemed to remember something. Then in the next second, Hulk rushed towards Rog. Odama Rasengan. When Hulk rushed in front of him, Rog didn't hesitate and directly condensed the Odama Rasengan in his right hand. Boom! The Odama Rasengan and Hulk's right fist collided fiercely, and a strong explosion sounded. Hulk smashed Rog's Odama Rasengan, but Hulk himself was also blown out by the Odama Rasengan. It wasn't until he crashed through several layers of walls that Hulk finally stopped. "Big guy, calm down, I don't want to hit you with the wooden man anymore." Before Hulk, who was knocked out, stood up, Rog used the body flicker technique to appear in front of him. For Rog's persuasion, Hulk gave his own answer. Hulk leaped up and pounced toward Rog like a ferocious tiger pouncing on its prey. "Why don't you listen to my advice?" With just a body flicker technique, Rog avoided Hulk's attack. After avoiding Hulk's attack, Rog extended his right hand towards Hulk. Mokutan Great Forest Technique. 5 wooden vines gushed out from Rog's right hand and pounced on Hulk like 5 pythons. Then, they bound Hulk tightly. Although the Great Forest technique doesn't have the effect of absorbing the physical strength and energy of the target like the Wood Dragon technique, the Great Forest technique's binding effect is better and more flexible than the Wood Dragon technique. In just a moment, Hulk was tightly wrapped by the wooden vines, like an oversized green dumpling. "Big guy, I'll say it for the last time, calm down." Chapter 129. To a certain extent, Rog was quite fond of Hulk. Although Hulk is not as smart as Banner, this is also one of his strengths. Banner is too smart, which leads him to think too much sometimes. Hulk is different. If you can get Hulk's approval, even if you ask him to fight the mountain-sized flame giant Surtur, he will not hesitate. So, Rog still prefers to be friends with people like Hulk. But at this time, Hulk obviously has no intention of being friends with him. After being entangled by Wood Release, Great Forest, Hulk not only did not calm down at all, but became more irritable. Kacha. The vines that wrapped around Hulk began to show signs of breaking under his violent struggle. "Hey! I really don't want to hit you with Wood Golem anymore." Having said that, Rog still silently cast Wood Release, Wood Golem. Because he is on the helicarrier, he can't directly summon Wood Arhat from the ground like before. But this does not affect his use of Wood Golem. If there is no way to use Wood Release after leaving the ground, then Wood Release would be too unimpressive. Under Rog's control, a piece of wood as thick as an arm grew out of his left shoulder. Under the nourishment of chakra, this piece of wood began to grow rapidly. In just a second or two, this piece of wood grew into a 3-meter-tall wood arhat. When this wood arhat with a long hook-nosed wood dragon wrapped around his body appeared, Rog lifted would release Great Forest and let his right hand return to its original state, and at the same time let Hulk regain his freedom. Hulk finally got rid of the wooden vines, but in the next second, Wood Arhat had already rushed in front of him and gave him a beautiful and powerful uppercut. Boom! Caught off guard, Hulk was sent flying by Wood Arhat's punch, and his whole body soared 1 meter into the air. However, Wood Arhat's attack was not limited to this. Before the airborne Hulk landed on the ground, the wooden Arhat used the Gatling physical transcendence fist technique he was best at. Yula 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 Yula, Hulk was like an oversized green sandbag, enduring Arhat's attacks. The muffled sound of impact resounded throughout the entire area. While controlling the wooden Arhat, Rog also used chakra to sense the situation on the mothership. Rogers and Tawny of the American team were repairing the No. 3 engine that was on strike. Nick Fury and Agent Hill were fighting the intruders on the bridge. Thor was in Loki's VIP presidential suite. Wait. How did Thor get into Loki's room? Although Thor and Loki were in the same area, their positions had been reversed. Thor was in the presidential suite, while Loki was outside. Although he didn't know what Thor and Loki had done before, judging from the current situation, Thor had obviously fallen into Loki's trap again. If it was just once, then it would be fine. But in Thor's situation, it was obvious that he had fallen into the same trap again and again. He didn't know if Loki had any hidden passive skills that caused Thor to involuntarily lower his IQ every time he saw him. After a helpless sigh, Rog turned his attention to Natasha. At this time, Natasha wasn't idle either. She was now fighting with Hawkeye Barton. Although Barton didn't have any superpowers and was an archer who was good at long-range attacks. But this didn't mean that he wasn't good at close combat. How could someone who could become a top agent not be good at close combat? After confirming the situation on the mothership, Rog turned his attention back to Hulk. Because he lost his mind, Hulk didn't attack Rog. Instead, he vented all his anger on Arhat. Bang 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 bang, looking at Hulk and Arhat who were passionately fighting each other like two barbarians, Rog stretched out his right hand again. With Hulk's physical strength, this level of fighting wouldn't be a problem even if it lasted for a day. But Rog didn't intend to waste so much time on Hulk. Wood release, Wood Dragon technique. Wood grew out of Rog's right hand again, but this time, it was no longer a wooden vine, but a long hook-nosed wood dragon. When this long hook-nosed wood dragon first appeared, it was only as thick as Rog's arm. But as its body lengthened, the long hook-nosed wood dragon's body also grew rapidly. When the wood dragon came in front of Hulk, the wood dragon's body had soared to 30 or 40 centimeters thick. Hulk, who was attracted by Arhat, didn't notice the arrival of the wood dragon, and in his current state of insanity, even if he found the wood dragon, he might not necessarily avoid it. Without any suspense, the long hook-nosed wood dragon wrapped tightly around Hulk like a python, and then began to absorb Hulk's physical strength. At the same time, Arhat didn't stop his attack. Hulk's body had been entangled by the wood dragon, so the target of Arhat's attack became Hulk's big green head. Bang 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 bang, after controlling Arhat to hit Hulk's head a few times, Rog lifted the wood puppet technique. Although Hulk's skin was rough and his recovery was good, it was still a bit cruel to hit someone's head so hard. Although he had lost his mind now, Rog still couldn't bear it. After being entangled by the wood dragon, there was only one end for Hulk, and that was to be drained of all his physical strength without any resistance. Although Hulk was still struggling hard, Rog turned around and left, completely ignoring Hulk's situation. Anyway, Hulk's end was doomed, and it was the same whether he stayed or not. And he had more important things to deal with now. At this time, next to Loki's presidential suite, Coulson was holding a frightening-looking energy weapon and pointing it at Loki on the console. If Loki pressed the button, Thor, who was locked in a cage, would enjoy a new experience of falling from 9,000 meters vertically. Do you like this? Because of the destroyer you sent, we developed this prototype. I don't know its power, do you want to try it? Coulson pointed the huge energy gun at Loki and said with a serious face. Under Coulson's threat, Loki left the console slightly, and the next second, he disappeared. It was an illusion again. Loki didn't know when he came behind Coulson, and the scepter in his hand stabbed directly at Coulson's back. Just as the scythe-like blade at the top of the scepter was about to stab Coulson's back, the scepter suddenly stopped. You have guts, you actually want to stab my former customer to death in front of me. Through Thor's coordinates on Loki, Rog immediately teleported over and grabbed the scepter in Loki's hand. Chapter 130. It wasn't until this time that Coulson discovered that Loki had appeared behind him and almost stabbed him. Just a little bit more and he would have reported to death. Thinking of this, Coulson couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. Loki didn't expect that Rog would come over at this time. According to the plan, Rog should have been stopping Hulk, who had lost his mind at this time. Hulk was taken care of so quickly. This is not scientific. Loki is not a person who acts blindly like Thor. Since he chose to surrender, he naturally made full preparations and plans. But now, Hulk, the most important person in the plan, did not play a role as expected. Hulk did not destroy S.H.I.E.L.D's helicarrier as planned, nor did he contain the actions of Rog and others, nor did he directly destroy S.H.I.E.L.D's recovery team from the inside. If I said that this was just a joke, would you believe it? Loki pulled back his scepter, and after finding that the scepter did not move, he took the initiative to let go of his right hand holding the scepter and silently stepped back a few steps. Do you think I would believe it? After throwing the scepter to Coulson, Rog walked slowly towards Loki. If he hadn't arrived in time with the flying thunder god, Coulson would have been lying on the ground bleeding. Wait. Maybe we can discuss it. If you help me conquer the Earth, I can give you half of the Earth and make you a Real King. How about it? Although Loki hasn't really fought with Rog, he knows very well that once they fight, the loser will definitely be himself. Since he can't beat him, it's reasonable to take a step back. Half of the Earth, this is definitely a very tempting bargaining chip. Not interested. Rog refused Loki's proposal without even thinking about it. What a joke, if the Earth was so easy to conquer, this would not be the Earth. Loki doesn't know how many terrifying existences are hidden on this seemingly inconspicuous Earth. Not to mention that he only has a Chitauri army on hand. Even if Thanos led the entire army, it would be impossible to conquer the Earth. Really, that's a pity. Although he didn't expect Rog to agree to his proposal directly from the beginning, Loki still felt sorry after hearing Rog's unhesitant refusal. Why is there no one with Rog's strength on his side? If Rog is willing to stand on his side, then everything will be much simpler. However, there are not so many ifs in this world. Loki can only pull out his only weapon, a knife of more than 10 centimeters long. A mage was forced to fight with a dagger. This was something no one else could do. However, at this moment, Loki's men's. Although he was entangled, he was not the only one who invaded the helicarrier's attack. Ants. Bang 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 bang, fierce gunshots sounded, bullets flew toward Rog Ants' direction. If he was alone, Rog could safely leave here before the bullets hit him. But now, he still needs to take care of Coulson, who is an ordinary person. Wood release, wooden spindle wall. Rog's body quickly rushed out of wood, instantly forming a curved wall, covering himself and Coulson. The flying bullets, without exception, all hit the hemispherical curved wall. There is no doubt about the power of the bullets, but the wood that makes up the wooden spindle wall is not ordinary wood. Clanking sounds rang out continuously. Although the mercenaries' shots were concentrated and accurate, they were still unable to penetrate the wooden spindle wall's defense. "You stay here, I'll deal with the people outside." After that, Rog used the body flicker technique to leave the wooden spindle wall. After mastering the sage mode of the Shikatsu forest, his wood-release ninjutsu has increased a lot. Tree World Descent, Great Forest Jutsu, Wooden Spindle Wall, these are the ninjutsu he learned after mastering the sage mode. In addition to these ninjutsu, he also mastered a ninjutsu that he likes, but never used in actual combat. The reason is very simple, because that ninjutsu is too cruel. After using the body flicker technique to leave the defensive range of the wooden spindle wall, Rog quickly glanced at the mercenaries who were attacking. 7 people. After confirming the number of enemies, Rog decisively used a ninjutsu that has never been used in actual combat. Wood release, cutting technique. A wooden spike that was tens of centimeters long grew out of his right arm and connected to his right arm like a dagger. Then, Rog flashed in front of these mercenaries like a ghost. Chi! The wooden spike of Rog's right arm pierced a mercenary's chest like lightning. At the same time, more than 10 wooden spikes as thick as an arm rushed out of the mercenary's body, instantly ending his life. For mercenaries, death is not a rare thing. But the scene in front of them is beyond their imagination. Being completely pierced by wooden spikes, this kind of death is cruel and shocking. Not only were these mercenaries scared, but even Loki and Thor couldn't help but take a deep breath when they saw this scene. Although they didn't personally experience the feeling of more than 10 wooden spikes growing out of the body, they can imagine the extreme pain just by looking at the hedgehog-like mercenary. After killing the first target, Rog didn't stop his footsteps and continued to attack the remaining 6 mercenaries. The 6 mercenaries only lasted for 6 seconds. When these mercenaries were all dead, Rog removed the cutting technique. The removal of the cutting technique didn't make the wooden spikes in the mercenaries disappear, they still kept the miserable way of death. Although these mercenaries didn't give Loki any hope of winning, they bought him a few precious seconds. While Rog was killing the mercenaries, Loki once again returned to the control panel and opened the round hatch under the cage. The moment the hatch was opened, a strong airflow whistled and the temperature began to drop rapidly. After the third engine stopped working, the helicarrier began to rapidly descend, but even so, the helicarrier was still thousands of meters in the air. "You really are a monster," Loki said to Rog with a little helplessness. Then under the gaze of Rog and Thor, he jumped down from the open hatch. "You're tuning in to the UnparalleledSwordWill YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.